Chapter 301. Among the gods, men were high and mighty, especially men with power and influence. Women were their foil. Not to mention 3,000 beauties, there were even several hundred people in the harem of the princes. If they had to take turns, a woman could only enjoy sex once a year. If she suddenly died one day, the princes might not even remember her name. Apart from those who were favored, for example, even if he was favored, he would still be envied. Compared to that prince, Yi Hong might be lacking a lot, but he also had his outstanding points. Tonight, Yi Hong had taught himself a lesson. Perhaps people really couldn't be judged by their appearances. Have you thought about it? Wei Chang asked. Think about what? 2 more months. Zishan did not say anything. Initially, she had thought that it would be good for her to free herself from these people, so that she would not be threatened by these people. But when she saw how sad Yi Hong was just now, she wanted to comfort him. She really wasn't worth it. Wei Chang smiled and said, "You've never been in love before, right?" Zishan, in the past, I have never talked about it before, and his honor is the same as well. However, only after talking about it did I know that the feeling of wanting to treat the other party well and live together with her properly is truly a very good feeling. I feel that his honor is very generous towards his subordinates, and love is very sweet. His honor is willing to share this sweetness with his subordinates, but do you think that your deities will share it with you? Yi Hua, who was currently smoking beside the window sill, choked on the smoke. I, the Supreme Overlord, just wanted to, forget it, I, the Supreme Overlord, just wanted to share the taste of love with my subordinates. Seeing that Zishan didn't say anything, Wei Chang continued. This little Red's family condition isn't very good, he doesn't have any education, and he doesn't know how to speak. When he was young, he had been hanging out with Big Brother. Although the two of them aren't blood-related brothers, they are closer than blood-related brothers. Actually, the reason why I said so much is because I want you to understand one thing: for a man to be willing to sacrifice himself for you, it really isn't easy. You have 2 choices right now. 1. With her primordial spirit dissipating, Little Red would naturally slowly accept this reality. Of course, she would also live in guilt. 2. Live on, perhaps for 2 months, perhaps for the rest of your life. It's up to you. Looking at Yi Hong, who was emotional, Zishan remained silent. After a long time, Zishan slowly said, Alright, I know what you mean. Zishan's expression sank. I haven't even said anything, and you already know what I am going to say. Who are you trying to fool? But it was good that he didn't say it out loud. It's a common problem for gods to want to save face. Then I'll help you again. Wei Chang smiled and shook his head. Zishan pouted coquettishly and said, Who wants face? At this moment, the Green and Red brothers were flying towards them. Both of them saw Wei Chang. Yi Hong immediately knelt in front of Wei Chang and begged, Uncle Wei, can you save Zishan? Zishan, who was standing beside Wei Chang, had a complicated expression on her pretty face. Why are you doing this? I can't save her, Wei Chang said lightly. Yi Hong suddenly felt powerless. Even Uncle Wei couldn't do anything? But you can save her. Wei Chang's words immediately pulled Yi Hong from hell to heaven. Even Zishan, who was in her nascent divinity form, was shocked. Knowing that there was a chance to save Zishan, Yi Hong became very excited. Uncle Wei, what should I do? Wei Chang lightly said, That depends on how much you are willing to pay. Wei Chang thought to himself, so this is how it feels to do this kind of thing. No wonder his honor likes it so much. This is indeed very interesting. His honor had successfully led Wei Chang astray. No matter what, I am willing to pay. Yi Hong said firmly. Big Brother Green let out a sigh. First love has this kind of magical power. Youngsters are completely unable to resist this kind of attack. To save her, you might lose half of your life force. Are you still willing to do it? Wei Chang asked gravely. Yi Hong's face became joyful. Only half? Can I give her a bit more? I want her to live a bit longer. What simple words, want her to live a bit longer. Wei Chang let out a sigh. Seems like I spoke too lightly. If I had known earlier, I would have been more vicious. His honor has done well. I have to learn more from him in the future. Hearing Yi Hong's words, Zishan smiled. Want me to live a bit longer? I have already lived for too long, but this sentence sounds so simple and honest. What a fool. Little Red, you have to know one thing, even if you save her, she might not appreciate your kindness. Wei Chang said faintly with his hands behind his back, seemingly imitating his honor. Zishan, who was at the side, glared ferociously at Wei Chang. I am not as cold-blooded as you. Yi Hong naturally knew, but she still didn't hesitate. Uncle Wei, I know that Zishan will not like me, but I only want her to live. To be able to take a look at her every day is enough. Wei Chang let out a deep sigh, and Zishan, who was at the side, had a grave expression on her face. Uncle Wei, I have another request. Yi Hong said again. Speak. Uncle Wei, please keep this matter a secret. I don't want Zishan to know about it. Wei Chang and Big Brother Green were puzzled. Such a heroic deed. If I don't tell her about it, how am I supposed to obtain the heart of the beauty? Big Brother Green wished he could raise his hand and slap Zishan. You have already sacrificed so much. If you don't let others know about it, you must be stupid. Wei Chang was very curious about what Yi Hong was thinking. Zishan was also very curious about Yi Hong's answer. Yi Hong scratched the back of his head embarrassedly and said while stammering, I'm afraid that Zishan will laugh at me. Everyone was speechless. What kind of logic is this? Why would Zishan laugh at you? This is a typical male chauvinist, wanting face. This is the type of person who likes someone to death, but is unable to say it out. Furthermore, I don't want the other party to know about how much I have sacrificed, fearing that the other party would laugh at me after knowing about it. Therefore, I might as well keep it a secret. Wei Chang looked toward Zishan, who was at the side, and discovered that Zishan's expression wasn't as stiff as before. If Zishan's expression is still as cold as before after hearing what I said, there's no need to redeem her expression. All right, I promise you that I will help you keep this secret. Wei Chang said. Yi Hong looked towards his big brother. Big Brother Green said helplessly, all right, Big Brother won't say anything. Yi Hong was able to be at ease, but little did he know that Zishan had been looking at him all this while. Uncle Wei, how do I save Zishan? Yi Hong asked excitedly. Wei Chang let out a breath. Do you remember what I taught you? Just transfer the aura into your body, and it will do. So simple? Wei Chang nodded his head with a smile. All right, I will be going back first. You two should also go back and rest early, and remember to take your wedding photos tomorrow. Yi Hong was extremely happy right now. I understand. Little brother, go back home and save Zishan. Big Brother Green reminded. Yi Hong carried onto Zishan's corpse, then disappeared into the night sky together with his big brother. Yi Hua flicked away the cigarette butt, then revealed an arc on the corner of his mouth. Ali, it's time to sleep with Daddy. Ali, I still want to watch for a while, just a while. Dong Huang Li began acting coquettishly. Chapter 302. Inside the villa, Yi Hong carried Zishan, who was gradually stiffening, and placed her on the bed. Soon after, Yi Hong lightly moved aside the hair on Zishan's forehead. So beautiful. Zishan, who was under her primordial spirit, was standing at the side. Her expression was very complicated. No one knew what she was thinking. Yi Hong stretched out her hands and was about to press it. When Zishan saw Yi Hong's action, she scolded, Where are you going to press it? That's right, Yi Hong was about to press it on her chest. Don't they always do this on TV? However, she did not press it. She felt that it was not good, so she retracted her hands. Zishan glared at Yi Hong. You're molesting my corpse. Right now, Yi Hong was thinking, where should I press it? It feels like I'm eating tofu wherever I press it. Looking at those white and slender hands, she swallowed her saliva and grabbed onto them. Zishan, who was at the side, frowned and did not say anything. A faint black fog came out from Yi Hong's hands and gradually spread to Zishan's arms. Very quickly, the black fog wrapped around Zishan. Xiao Yi also had this kind of black fog in his body. At that time, when his heart was pierced, he was still able to recover. From this, it could be seen how powerful this black fog was. However, this black fog was only a small passive ability of Wei Chang. Zishan's primordial spirit gradually disappeared with a complicated expression. Yi Hong did not care about anything and continued to transfer as much energy as she could into Zi Shan's body. The cold and delicate hand in her palm gradually warmed up. This made Yi Hong overjoyed. Uncle Wei did not lie to her. This is great. 5 minutes later, Zi Shan's body gradually became rosy. At the same time, she opened her eyes. When Yi Hong saw that Zi Shan woke up, she was so scared that she immediately let go of Zi Shan and retreated to the side. The two of them did not say anything. The atmosphere was very awkward. After a long time, Zi Shan said faintly, "I'm going to take a bath." After she finished speaking, she stood up and walked into the bathroom. Yi Hong heaved a sigh of relief. I finally saved her. After making the bed on the floor, Yi Hong was very excited. After Zi Shan finished her bath, Yi Hong also went to take a bath. The smell of blood on her body was very heavy. In the dark bedroom, two hearts were beating slightly. Yi Hong could not sleep, and Zi Shan could not sleep either. After a while, Zi Shan said softly, "Yi Hong, thank you." Seeing that Yi Hong did not say anything, Zi Shan mustered up her courage and said, "Yi Hong, I know what you are thinking. I can promise you that I will be your girlfriend for 2 months, but after 2 months, I hope that you will not save me anymore. I am not worthy of you doing this for me." From the looks of it, Zi Shan was indeed moved by Yi Hong and was willing to be his girlfriend for 2 months. However, Zi Shan still refused Yi Hua's order and refused to sleep with Yi Hong. However, who knows what will happen 2 months later? At that time, wasn't Qingya still very arrogant? And right now, wasn't she still being trained by Yi Hua to be completely obedient and obedient? However, Yi Hua was, after all, Yi Hua. He was different from Yi Hong. When Zi Shan saw that Yi Hong did not reply even after a long time, she furrowed her eyebrows and looked at Yi Hong. Fell asleep, Zi Shan laughed and closed her beautiful eyes. Yi Hong, who was lying on the mattress on the floor, opened her eyes. She had heard everything just now and was actually very happy. She was so happy that she didn't know what to say. However, when she heard the latter part of the sentence, her heart sank again. Kill her? That was impossible. I owe his honor a debt of gratitude, and she is also the person I like. At most, I will go and beg his honor 2 months later. At most, I will exchange a life for a life. Early morning. Today was a good day for Yi Hong. After all, his honor had already arranged everything for her to take their wedding photos. Just thinking about it makes me a bit excited. However, the prerequisite is that I have to toss all of my worries to the back of my mind. After washing up, Yi Hong brought Zi Shan and walked out of the villa. Big brother naturally wouldn't be a third wheel. Zi Shan, what do you want to eat for breakfast? Yi Hong felt that Zi Shan wasn't that distant from him today. Zi Shan was even walking side by side with him. Zi Shan said unhurriedly, "Cold noodles?" Hearing what Zi Shan said, Yi Hong became even more happy. In the past, I would just casually, or. After arriving at the city district and alighting from the car in front of a cold noodles shop, they immediately received attention. The little brother Red today was a bit different. His face was still the same, and his hairstyle was still the same. However, after what happened last night, he seemed to have become more mature. This was a kind of qualitative change in his temperament, and he no longer looked like a loafer. In actuality, the Red and Green brothers didn't know that the aura within their bodies was slowly changing their bodies. "Boss, 2 bowls of cold noodles, 1 bowl without chili," Yi Hong shouted out. Yesterday, he had also brought Zi Shan to eat cold noodles, but Zi Shan had picked out all of the chili from the cold noodles. Therefore, today, Yi Hong became more careful. Zi Shan didn't have much of an expression on her face. She was very indifferent, but who knew what she was thinking in her heart? Yi Hong didn't take it to heart. It's fine to just watch, at least it's better than losing it. After finishing eating cold noodles, the two went to the studio that had been arranged beforehand. I'm afraid that I will have to spend the entire day shooting indoors. Meanwhile, when those staff members saw Zi Shan, they were all attracted to her. What a cold and arrogant woman. This little brother is very fortunate. Right now, Yi Hong had changed into a black suit, and he looked much more mature. His hairstyle had also changed, and he felt as if he had become a completely different person, looking extremely handsome. However, When Yi Hong saw Zishan coming out of the mirror, he couldn't help but stiffen. Although Zishan doesn't have an absolute beauty like the two madams, in my eyes, Zishan is the most beautiful woman in the world. This was the first time Zishan wore a white wedding dress, and when she saw herself in the mirror, she was a bit surprised. There are indeed a lot of fun things in the secular world. The two of you, come over here. The photographer said with a light smile. Stop looking. If I continue looking, I won't even be able to finish shooting today. Yi Hong and Zishan walked to the front of the set, and each stood on one side. The photographer felt very awkward. Are the two of you here to shoot wedding photos? Why are you standing so far away? Is there an air wall in the middle? The two of you, can you get a bit closer? The photographer said speechlessly. Yi Hong was very nervous. Zishan was also a bit nervous, and her hands were still holding onto the flowers. Seeing that the bride and groom were not moving, the photographer seemed to have sensed something and did not rush them. You, come over here. In the end, Zishan still called out to Yi Hong. After getting Zishan's permission, Yi Hong was at ease and stood at the side. But isn't this too formal, too serious? What about on the battlefield? The groom, hug the bride and smile. The photographer shouted out. Yi Hong didn't dare to recklessly touch Zishan. Hug me, Zishan said lightly. This caused Yi Hong's heart to beat a bit faster. Zishan actually wants me to hug her. My God, I'm not dreaming, right? Groom, don't be embarrassed, the bride has already spoken. Yi Hong took a deep breath. This is even more nervous than cheating in exams. Yi Hong stretched out his hand and lightly hugged onto Zishan's slender waist, then smelled the fragrance that was being emitted out from Zishan's body. So, the world can really be so beautiful. The photographer said with a smile. All right. Smile. Yi Hong was nervous to the point that he couldn't smile anymore. And when Zishan revealed out a faint smile, even the photographer couldn't help but become dazed for a bit. Groom, the bride is already smiling. Hurry up and cooperate. Chapter 303. Good, this is the smile. The photographer was very satisfied. Next, they took all kinds of photos. He would think about what would happen 2 months later. He had to seize the moment and enjoy every second of every day. Inside the bedroom on the second floor of Leisure Bar, both father and daughter had yet to wake up. Donghuang Li's entire body was lying on her father's body, and from time to time, she would purse her small mouth. The void twisted and the two wives finally returned home. Yi Huan naturally sensed it. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at Qingya and Donghuang Baiji with a calm expression. Donghuang Li also sat up and rubbed her big eyes. When she saw her mommy, she pouted her small mouth and helped her daddy get up. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were helpless. Both the elder and the younger are angry. However, upon seeing that Yi Hua was able to stand up with the support of the crutches, the two women immediately became joyous. Yi Hua, are you done? Yi Hua, can you leave now? Are you all blind? I, the Supreme Overlord, have already stood up and you all are still asking me. Yi Hua raised his walking stick and took a look at his two wives indifferently, then said calmly, Ah Li, accompany Daddy to buy breakfast. All right, Donghuang Li cooperated with her father very well. In actuality, the two of them had already discussed about it. If their mommy were to return, they would use this kind of method to deal with them. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji laughed bitterly, then held onto their husband's side. Why did you come back? It's so fun outside. Yi Hua said faintly, and his tone was filled with the taste of jealousy. As expected of the vinegar king of the cultivation world, to actually be jealous of the heir. Hubby, even if it was Yi Hua who had sworn to ignore them just a second ago, he still wouldn't be able to endure the two of them acting coquettishly towards him. In the future, if you all dare to go out of the house again, you all can go and kneel on the keyboard. Yi Hua said gravely. If you have the heart to do that, we will kneel to you, Qingya smiled tenderly. This fellow is only saying it with his mouth. Yi Hua clicked his tongue, then prepared to go to the alley to eat Chinese jianbing. The point was not to eat the pancake, but to show off. Didn't that auntie say that I would capsize? Look at him now, his two wives are so obedient, and there's even a cute Ali. Facts have proven that I am never wrong. Sure enough, when the auntie saw Yi Hua, she gave him a thumbs up. The auntie was convinced. Yi Hua was very complacent. I have finally turned the tables. Returning back to the bedroom, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji fawned on Yi Hua. They gave Yi Hua a massage, and even fed him fruits. Yi Hua said magnanimously, "I forgive the two of you." Just as he finished speaking, the slender hand on his shoulder disappeared, and the fruit was also put away. "You all?" Yi Hua was shocked. "You guys are too realistic." While holding hands with Donghuang Baiji, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji said with a smile, "Yi Hua, since you are able to move now, you don't need us to serve you anymore. Let's go and look for Yu Tong and Zizi to eat chicken, bye-bye." After finished speaking, Yi Hua turned around and left. Only when the door was closed did Yi Hua react. "What a lawless woman. Go and kneel on the keyboard for me, and you still want to act like you're eating chicken. Eat my food." A week passed by very quickly. During this week, Yi Hua asked the two women what they were doing during those few days. In the end, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji gave Yi Hua a rough idea of what they were doing during those few days. This caused Yi Hua to be very worried. "Recently, I have been preparing to have another child with Baiji. After I recover, I will be able to start working. I, the Supreme Overlord, will definitely put more effort into my child. As long as I don't have another child, I will not give up." When Donghuang Baiji heard what Yi Hua said, she was immediately startled. Thus, Yi Hua's recovery speed was much faster than anyone else's. For the sake of having a child, Yi Hua was quite diligent. However, there was a happy event that happened today, and it was a happy event for the entire team. And that was his underlings Yi Hong and Zi Shan's wedding. The two's wedding was the outdoor kind. Originally, Yi Hua wanted to invite the big shots from various regions over, but since his underlings said that he wanted to keep a low profile, Yi Hua decided to let him have his way. Other than Death Mage and Sun Fang, who were not present due to inconvenience, everyone else was present. After all, Zhu Tian had only met the two women not too long ago. This time, Zhu Tian turned into his original form and was carried by Yi Zizi. When the women saw such a cute cat, they immediately surrounded Yi Zizi and stroked Yi Zizi. This caused Zhu Tian to feel very annoyed. Today, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were also dressed splendidly. However, they knew that they shouldn't steal the limelight from the bride. Thus, the color of their clothes was a bit plain. Lai Gu's three celebrities were also the same, each and every one of them was incomparably beautiful. Of course, there was also Wei Chang's little girlfriend, Tang Wei. Right now, she was also exuding a faint charm. It really made people sigh. Yi Hua was dressed very cautiously today, because today he was acting as the MC. As the boss, I definitely have to host the wedding of my underlings. In the future, every time my underlings get married, I have to be like this too, only then will I be able to show the care and concern of a boss. Standing on the stage and looking at the people below, Yi Hua sighed with emotion. Unknowingly, there were so many more people in the team. In the past, there were always 8 people. Now, there were more than 10. There would be more and more of them in the future. Seeing that everyone's face was brimming with smiles, Yi Hua also revealed out a smile that was rarely seen on his face. This feeling is truly great. Let's welcome the bride and groom. Yi Hua stood on the stage and shouted out loudly. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji smiled helplessly. This fellow is even more excited that his little brother is getting married. All of the underlings were very envious of little brother Red. Little brother Red was actually able to get his honor to host his wedding. Just what kind of glory is this? Tang Wei was also very envious. After I graduate, I will also marry Uncle Wei. Lai Gu's 3 wives were also the same. They were all envious. In actuality, the ones who were the most envious were still Qingya and Donghuang Baiji. They are so concerned about their little brother's wedding, but why aren't they concerned about their own wedding at all? Big Brother Green turned on the music, and the wedding march started playing. Donghuang Li could be seen walking at the front while holding onto a flower basket. Donghuang Li's cute little face was bright red, and she seemed to be a bit nervous. Yi Hong was wearing a red suit today, and he looked very handsome. Zishan, who was beside Zishan, was holding onto Yi Hong's hand. Zishan was wearing a white veil on her head. Yi Hua, who was standing on the stage, felt very gratified. I didn't waste my efforts. All of the underlings also discovered that his honor's change was really big. In the past, if this kind of thing happened, Zishan would have been killed long ago. This kind of thing happens very often. The number of beauties that died in his honor's hands was innumerable, and even the most beautiful women were killed by his honor. And now, not only was Zishan not killed, his honor even gave Zishan a fated marriage. Don't look at it as just a small fated marriage. Didn't his honor still expand his team? As for whether or not Zishan likes Yi Hong or not, no one knows. However, at least from the looks of it, Zishan doesn't seem to dislike Yi Hong at all. The two slowly walked onto the stage, and the big brother walked onto the stage while holding onto a plate with the wedding rings on it. Yi Hua coughed lightly. What I want to ask now, I hope that you all can answer truthfully. Chapter 304. Yi Hong, are you willing to marry her? No matter what happens in the future, we will stick together through life and death. Yi Hua's question was rather simple, but it directly hit the main point. How many people could live and die together? I'm willing, Yi Hong said firmly. However, Yi Hua was not satisfied and said gravely, a man's voice must be loud. Shout it out. I'm willing. Yi Hua nodded his head. As expected of my underling. Looking toward Zishan, Yi Hua asked gravely, Zishan, are you willing to marry this man in front of you? No matter what happens in the future, we will live and die together. Right now, everyone who knew what was going on was very nervous. If Zishan were to say that she was not willing right now, she would definitely anger his honor. Needless to say, there was no need to think too much about the consequences. In actuality, the one who was the most nervous was Yi Hong. The more she interacted with Zishan, the deeper they fell for each other. Furthermore, during the past few days, Zishan had also changed a lot. She really resembles my girlfriend a lot. At the very least, Zishan is no longer fierce towards me. I'm willing. Zishan's gentle voice rang out in the hall. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The happy event did not turn into a bad one. Yi Hong was so excited that her lips were trembling. She was willing. She was really willing. He suddenly realized that doing anything for her was worth it. Yi Hua was also very satisfied with Zishan's attitude. However, Zishan's gaze had always been on Yi Hong. Other than Zishan didn't have a good impression of anyone else. Let's exchange rings, Yi Hua said with a light smile. With trembling hands, Yi Hong picked up the wedding ring and put it on Zishan's hand. Zishan appeared to be much calmer as she placed the wedding ring on Yi Hong's finger. All right, I declare it. You two are now legally husband and wife, Yi Hua shouted out. The audience also applauded, and Big Brother Green even shed tears. Little brother had finally gotten married. Yi Hua waved his hand, indicating for everyone to quiet down, then said, Do you want to see the groom kiss the bride? Your Honor, when did you become so mischievous? Wasn't he happy? Qinya and Donghuang Baiji smiled helplessly. However, they were also able to see Yi Hua's change. He was no longer as cold as before, and he had become more humane. Ali wants to see, meow. Yi Hua looked at Yi Hong and said, You have heard everyone's thoughts, right? Don't let the girl take the initiative. Hearing that, Qinya and Donghuang Baiji were very puzzled. What do you mean by this time? What about the last time? However, he was quickly attracted by the atmosphere of the scene. The nervous Yi Hong didn't know what to say, while Zishan slowly closed her beautiful eyes. Lai Gu immediately stood on the chair and started whistling. Along with Lai Gu leading the way, everyone started heckling. Looking at this kind of scene, Yi Hua felt that he should hold more events like this in the future. Yi Hong mustered up her courage and gently hugged Zishan. She lifted the white veil and slowly lowered her head to kiss Zishan's tender and beautiful lips. Yi Hua couldn't help but nod his head. This is more like a man. But it was not domineering enough. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Although there weren't any big shots, everyone present could easily destroy them, especially the 4 of the 7 deadly sins. Don't be in such a hurry to consummate your marriage. I still have a few things that I want to ask you too. Yi Hua said faintly. Everyone couldn't help but be curious as to what His Honor was going to ask. Wei Chang hurriedly noted down what His Honor was going to ask. In the future, His Honor will definitely have to take a test on him. Big Brother Green was also at the side, taking down notes. Who is going to do the housework in the future? Yi Hua asked. Everyone, Qingya and Donghuang Baiji rolled their eyes at Yi Hua. You still have the nerve to ask? Are you afraid that you have already done the housework? In the end, aren't the two of us sweeping the floor while you act like a big boss? Yi Hong rushed to answer. Yi Hua's expression sunk. Yi Hua asked again, who is going to take the express delivery? Me. Yi Hong rushed to answer again. There's no need to ask anymore, this is the rhythm of taking care of everything. Yi Hua took a glare at Yi Hong. Are you even a man? This kind of thing is for women to do, why are you rushing to do it? Yi Hong naturally understood His Honor's meaning, but I just want to do it. Yi Hua asked gravely, who is going to cook in the future? Zishan said slowly. Yi Hong was startled, but there was happiness within the shock. Yi Hua was very satisfied. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji really wanted to pull their man down. If you continue to make a fuss like this, others are going to get a divorce. Who is going to peel the crayfish? Yi Hua asked. Zishan said slowly, me. Yi Hua took a look at his little brother. Men must be domineering, if not how are they going to establish themselves in the family in the future? Little brother Red didn't understand. In actuality, Zishan didn't want Yi Hong to offend Yi Hua. After all, it wasn't worth it for Zishan to offend Yi Hua for herself. Meanwhile, Wei Chang and Big Brother Green took note of His Honor's question. The last event, tossing a bouquet. Those who aren't married, come and snatch it, whoever manages to snatch it will be the next lucky person. I will be the host of the wedding. Yi Hua, who was so happy, almost let it slip. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji could be seen walking up first. Yi Hua glared at them fiercely. Why are you two coming up to join in the fun? Qingya rolled her eyes at Yi Hua. We want to get married. Right now, even your wife is going up, do the others still dare to go up? Yi Hua shouted out, who is that Tang Wei? Come up. Also, the three of you come up too. Wei Chang and Lai Gu, the two of you come up too. Also, Little Green, come up too. Brother-in-law, I want to come up too. Qing Yutong shouted out excitedly. Since everyone is going up, it isn't too appropriate for me to sit together with a minor, right? Yi Zizi was sucking on her lollipop while hugging onto the board Ju Tian. It's none of your business, go to the side. Yi Hua glared at his sister-in-law. Your big sister is joining in the fun, you come up too. Qing Yutong pouted her small mouth. I don't even have a boyfriend yet. Yi Hong was very nervous. These big brothers are all standing at the back, waiting for Zishan to toss a bouquet. Meanwhile, Zishan also felt that this group of people was different. Within the seriousness, there was a hint of laughter. They seemed to be very happy together, and the smile on everyone's face was very genuine. Lai Gu shouted out loudly, don't snatch with me, I want to get married. Lai Gu, if you dare to snatch my bouquet, you are dead for sure. Qingya shouted out with a smile. Lady boss, this is the boss's order. Wei Chang laughed out loudly, Lai Gu, your boss wants to stew you. The few beauties on the stage immediately laughed endlessly. Yi Hua felt that the atmosphere was about right, and he shouted out, snatch properly, don't cheat. Everyone naturally wouldn't cheat, after all, cheating wouldn't work. With her back facing everyone, Zishan tossed the bouquet with her hands. The bouquet drew an arc in the air. Qingya and Donghuang Baiji were standing too close to the front, and the bouquet was already above the two people's heads. Wei Chang and Lai Gu could be seen immediately jumping up to snatch the bouquet, and in the process of snatching the bouquet was sent flying away. Qing Yutong's eyes lit up. I can snatch the bouquet even though I'm sitting down? At this moment, a gust of wind blew over, and the bouquet actually flew towards Ju Tian, who was in Yi Zizi's embrace. Ju Tian's brows wrinkled, then stretched out his paw and slapped towards the bouquet. When everyone saw this, they thought, what a temperamental cat. Chapter 305. Big Brother Green didn't react for a moment, but when he did, he was excited. First, he did an impromptu Thomas spin, and the turf was almost gone. Looking at Qingya and Donghuang Baiji rolling their eyes at him, Yihua felt that there was nothing he could do about it. Who asked the two of you to be so stupid and stand at the very front? At the end of the ceremony, everyone began to chat. The women were grouped together, and the men were grouped together. The women were all asking the bride special questions, and Tang Wei also wanted to learn a bit of experience. After that, they started to talk about cosmetics. Actually, at their level, cosmetics were actually not very useful. As for Yi Hua and the others, they weren't discussing such a small matter. Your Honor, according to Sun Fang's news, a lot of foreigners have appeared in the south, and it seems like they want to take advantage of us. Wei Chang said gravely. Everyone remained silent. If Yi Hua didn't speak, how could they possibly continue the conversation? Yi Hua drank a mouthful of champagne. Then let them have it. After we are full, we will catch them all in one go. Lai Gu praised, Your Honor sure has a good plan. Just when they thought that they had succeeded, Your Honor immediately shouted at them, Your Honor is formidable. Lai Gu, you even know how to speak now? Yi Hua laughed lightly. Lai Gu scratched his chin embarrassedly. Recently, I have been reading books and gaining knowledge. That would be for the best. Knowledge is power. The two of you should also learn more. Yi Hua looked towards the Green and Red brothers and said. The Green and Red brothers naturally agreed to his honor's request. Following his honor, we will definitely be able to eat and drink well. Yi Hong had a look that seemed like she had something to say but didn't dare to say it. Yi Hua asked curiously, Xiao Hong, if you have something to say, just say it. Why are you stuttering like a man? Your Honor, are you able to take back that 2 months deadline? Yi Hong asked while trembling with fear. When this question came out, Wei Chang and Lai Gu's complexion immediately darkened. Even Big Brother Green also scolded me for being an idiot. You want his honor to take back what he said. Don't you want to live anymore? Or are you too full of yourself? Yi Hong knew that she had said the wrong thing. Yi Hong lowered her head and scolded herself for being an idiot in her heart. His honor is already treating me so well, and yet I still have the cheek to raise a request. When Zishan saw that Yi Hong had her head lowered, and the other people's expressions were extremely ugly, Zishan could roughly guess what Yi Hong was talking about. Yi Hua patted on Yi Hong's shoulder, then walked towards his wives without saying anything. Lai Gu shook his head and walked away as well. This is also your wedding day. If it was any other time, his honor would definitely give you a scolding. The reason why Yi Hua patted on Little Brother Red's shoulder was because he wanted to tell Little Brother Red that I, the Supreme Overlord, can bestow and can also take back. Don't forget your place. Xiao Hong, don't beg his honor for this matter anymore. If not, the consequences will be very serious. Wei Chang said gravely. Right now, in this kind of situation, Zishan could only save herself and get pregnant at the fastest speed possible. However, Zishan wouldn't do such a thing, and this caused Yi Hong to have no choice but to anger his honor. This is a very troublesome problem. After saying that, Wei Chang went to accompany his girlfriend, leaving Big Brother Green behind. Little brother, don't be discouraged. Enlighten Zishan and strive to get her pregnant as soon as possible. That way, nothing will happen. How could Yi Hong not know about her big brother's persuasion? But she didn't want to force it. She was actually very satisfied with her current life. After chatting for a long time, everyone went back to their own home. Yi Hua finally knew what was called reap what you sow. Right now, he was asking questions in his ears. Yi Hua, when are you going to marry us? Yi Hua, do you not want to marry us? Yi Hua, do you have another woman outside again? Papa, Ali also wants to get married. It seemed that he couldn't let them attend weddings in the future. However, as for getting married, Yi Hua had naturally thought about it before. My wedding with them must be an unprecedentedly grand spectacle. However, that still requires a bit of time, because I have yet to conquer the Sea of Stars. Zijin City. Qing family's villa. A handsome man drove a Bentley and stopped in front of the villa. The man took a lot of gifts from the car, then walked to the door and knocked. The door of the house could be seen being opened, and the woman who appeared was precisely Qing Ya's mother, Zihan. Looking at the unfamiliar handsome man in front of her, Zihan asked in confusion, "You are?" "Aunt Z, don't you remember me? I am Chen Xuanzong. When I was young, I used to play at your house. When I was studying, I would come back home with Qingye every day. At that time, I was very fat." As he spoke, Chen Xuanzong puffed up his cheeks, proving that he was still the big fatty from before. Zihan suddenly recalled, back then when she was in Long and City, there was a family with the surname Chen who lived in the neighbor's house. When she was young, she remembered that he was still chubby. It had been a few years since she last saw him, and he had become so handsome. "Oh, it's little Chen. Please come in," Zihan said with a smile. "Thank you, Aunt." Chen Xuanzong changed into slippers and walked into the house. Everything feels so familiar, as if it happened just yesterday. "Aunt Z, is Qingye not at home?" Although Chen Xuanzong knew why Qingye wasn't at home, he still couldn't help but ask. Perhaps history has changed. Upon mentioning her daughter, Zihan let out a deep sigh. Seeing that Aunt's expression wasn't good, Chen Xuanzong knew that history had not changed. Qingye was still following that bastard Long Outyin. "Aunt, quickly sit." Chen Xuanzong placed down the gifts and helped Zihan to sit down. "Looking at this handsome man in front of me, at least it is better than that Yihua who has a stern face, right? Why is Qingye so stubborn?" Zihan let out a heavy sigh. "Little Chen, to tell you the truth, Qingye is living outside in a fit of pique again. As expected, that Long Outyin is really inhumane. Not only did he harm Qingye, he also harmed Qing Yutong. He is simply inhumane. Brother, ever since Yihua appeared, your memory has been messed up. Long Outyin is still struggling in his cave. Qingye's temper is a bit bad, but she still cares about the family." Chen Xuanzong naturally had to put in a good word for Qingye. Zihan still had some impression of the little fatty in the past. At that time, he was shy and bashful. Now, he is so tall and handsome. He is indeed a good match for Qingye. "Stop putting in a good word for her, she is infuriating me to death." Chen Xuanzong laughed lightly, appearing to be very magnanimous. This made Zihan feel that this person is more stable than Long Outyin. "Little Chen, why did you suddenly move back then?" Zihan asked curiously. Chen Xuanzong's expression stiffened. Back then, he didn't move, but rather, his entire family was exterminated. Back then, he wasn't there, so he managed to escape the calamity. After that, he concealed his identity and lived in seclusion. However, he still paid attention to Qingye. However, after hearing the news of Qingye's suicide, Chen Xuanzong became addicted to alcohol, and in the end, he jumped into a river and died. In the end, he reincarnated into a different world, became a demon emperor, and returned. Chen Xuanzong laughed lightly. "Auntie, it's all because of the family's business problems. Back then, I left in a hurry and didn't even have the time to greet Qingye." It's fine, I will call Qingye back right now. I am really worried about her staying in the south all day long." After speaking, Zihan picked up her phone and called her daughter. Right now, Qingye was currently being pressed down by Yihua, and Yihua was using all of his strength to enjoy Qingye's cherry lips. "Stop messing around, my phone is ringing." "Don't answer it," Yihua said gravely. "I am currently enjoying myself, and no one is allowed to disturb me." "Wait a moment." Qingye rolled her eyes at Yihua. Yihua wrinkled his brows. "Hurry up." Picking up the phone, Yihua saw that the call was from his mother. It has been a long time since he last saw his mother, and he misses her a lot. Chapter 306. When Yihua heard this name, he frowned. He had a bad premonition. Zihan said weakly on the other side of the phone, "Your mom misses you." This sentence directly poked the softest part of Qingye's heart. Thinking about it, I haven't gone back to see Mom for a long time. Mom, I miss you too. Qingye sat on the bedside and said gently. Yihua hugged Qingye and gave her a warning look. You just came back for a few days and you want to go out again? I heard from your dad that the South isn't very peaceful recently. We are worried about you and your sister staying there. Mom, you can be at ease. Yutong and I are very safe. Nothing will happen to us. Qinya consoled her mom attentively. However, this damned bastard was still randomly touching my body again. Zihan said faintly, "Your dad might be stubborn, but he actually misses you guys a lot. His body hasn't been very good these few days, so Grandpa and Grandma have been staying here." Qinya thought about it and agreed. Dad definitely got some news that the South isn't safe, so he called Grandpa and Grandma over. Hearing that her daughter didn't say anything, Zihan held onto her forehead and said, "Mom's body hasn't been very good these few days either. If Qinya still didn't go back, she would be unfilial. Yutong and I will come back in a few days," Qinya said helplessly. Yihua's gaze turned cold. "What are you trying to do? Leaving so soon? Do you want to die?" "Don't come back in a few days. Mom misses you." All right, as soon as possible." Hearing that her daughter agreed, Zihan heaved a sigh of relief and hung up the phone. "This is really worrisome. I had to pretend to be sick before coming." Zihan stood up helplessly and poured a cup of water for Chen Xuanzong. Chen Xuanzong thanked her and took the teacup. "Auntie, Qinya is just concerned about you." Zihan smiled and asked curiously, "Little Chen, have you found a girlfriend?" "Sigh, it's hard to find a girlfriend. I'm still single." Chen Xuanzong smiled embarrassedly. Zihan smiled, "Little Chen, don't say that. With your conditions, you are still looking for a girlfriend. But it's hard to find someone who is sincere." Chen Xuanzong let out a sigh. Zihan seemed to understand something and took a sip of tea awkwardly. Chen Xuanzong also knew that he had said too much. He said apologetically, "Auntie, I'm sorry. I'm fine. Then I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. I won't disturb your rest any longer, Auntie." Chen Xuanzong stood up and acted very modestly. Zihan deeply liked him. Zihan nodded. "Okay, little Chen, take care." "All right, little Chen, give me your phone number. If ya comes back, I'll call you." Chen Xuanzong was overjoyed. He took out his name card and said, "Thank you, Auntie." "Yes, Auntie has high hopes for you." Walking out of Qing family's villa, Chen Xuanzong let out a sigh of relief. "In my previous life, I wasn't able to bring happiness to Qinya, so in this life, I will definitely cherish her properly and not let her suffer any harm." Zihan, who was in the house, looked at the name card in her hand. It was made of pure gold, and there was only a name on it. It was engraved in a flamboyant style, Chen Xuanzong. It looked very imposing, and there was a phone number on the back. This young man was not bad. "Zihan, who came just now?" Qing Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing, walked down from upstairs while yawning. Zihan laughed lightly. "One of your childhood companions. Those two are always making one worry." Wang Muqing poured a cup of water, and that coquettish look of hers was truly amorous. Qingya's father is also someone who knows how to enjoy life. "I gave you a call just now. She will bring Yutong back." "Really?" Wang Muqing cried out in surprise. Zihan nodded her head. "As long as my daughter says it, she will definitely do it. Just that, there will be very serious consequences, such as being bullied by Yihua." "You want to go back?" Yihua asked coldly. Qinya placed down her phone and looked at Yihua, then suddenly pushed her hands forward. Qinya pushed Yihua onto the bed, then very domineeringly kissed her man. "I, the Supreme Overlord, like this kind of domineering woman. Even a kiss can be so awesome." Yihua, "I, the Supreme Overlord, can't stand this kind of sound the most," and goosebumps immediately appeared on my body. "This is how people behave when they have something to ask of me." Yihua asked gravely, "How many days are you going to be gone for?" Half a month?" "Half a month?" Yihua shouted out gravely. Ever since Qinya awakened that whatever bloodline of hers, Qinya has been wandering around and not returning home at all times. "Even I, the Supreme Overlord, am not as busy as you." "That is 10 days. Qinya shook Yihua's arm and begged. Yihua said gravely, 1 week. If you don't come back in a week, don't blame me for catching you." "All right, it's settled then." Upon hearing that Yihua agreed to it, Qinya immediately jumped off the bed. As expected, he couldn't agree to it. He wouldn't even give her any benefits. Wasn't one more week too long? Actually, 2 or 3 days would suffice. Qinya opened up the wardrobe and prepared some clothes. Yi Hua, when I'm not around, you should focus on making a baby with Baiji. Yi Hua sneered. Also, Zizi has to go to school tomorrow to register, don't forget about it. Qinya reminded. Yi Hua was very displeased. This is clearly what you wanted to do, and now, you are pushing everything onto me. You're my husband, moi. There was nothing wrong with his words. Why are you packing things so early for? I'm going early and coming back early, lest you, the jealous king of the cultivation world, get mad at me. The corner of Yi Hua's mouth twitched, then snorted, Yi Hua, will get jealous? You are thinking too much. It's even better if you don't get jealous, let your wife kiss you, be good. Do you think that I, the supreme overlord, am a 3-year-old child? Just a kiss is enough? I don't even need to hug. After Qinya finished packing, she booked a flight in the afternoon. Why didn't she just fly back directly? Because Qinya didn't want to lose her normal way of thinking. Just like Yi Hua, in situations where it wasn't very urgent, he would still take public transportation. Qinya walked to Qing Yutong's room, and not long later, she heard Qing Yutong wailing. What's with big sister's situation? Yi Hua raised his walking stick and said to Qing Yutong, if your big sister wants you to go back, then go back, don't dawdle. However, Yi Hua sent a private message to Qing Yutong, look after your big sister well, I will give you meat to eat when I come back. Upon hearing that there would be meat to eat, Qing Yutong's expression changed. Big sister, we haven't gone back for too long, hurry up and pack up. Qinya was no longer an ordinary person. Although she wasn't able to hear their private message, she knew that it was Yi Hua who was messing around. To actually send a spy to watch over me, what a stingy man. However, Qinya still felt sweet in her heart. Zizi, sister-in-law will be going back for a few days, you have to be obedient. Qinya rubbed onto Yi Zizi's head and warned carefully. Yi Zizi nodded her head, I will be obedient. Chapter 307. The more she said that, the more Yi Hua didn't believe her. At this moment, Donghuang Baiji walked over while carrying her daughter. What are you two doing? Qinya is going back to my parents' home for a few days. Yi Hua said faintly. Qinya pinched onto Donghuang Li's cheeks. Baiji, please take care of Yi Hua. I won't disturb the two of you anymore. Donghuang Baiji's face turned red. Aunt Qing, are you two going out to play? Ali wants to go out to play too. Donghuang Li stretched out her hands towards Qinya. Qinya carried Donghuang Li in her embrace. Aunt Qing is not going out to play, I am going back to see my parents. Is that so? According to etiquette, Ali should also go and see her parents. If not, Ali would seem to be very rude. Donghuang Li muttered, causing everyone to laugh. Yi Hua suddenly had an idea. Qinya, you can bring Ali along to play. Qinya and Donghuang Baiji cried out in surprise. After crying out in surprise, Qinya understood what Yi Hua meant. Towards Donghuang Baiji, there was nothing she could do. Donghuang Baiji glared at Yi Hua. Daddy is the best, Ali likes daddy. Donghuang Li happily jumped down from Qinya's embrace, and not long later, she came back with a small luggage. Ali is ready, when are we leaving? Everyone. At 3 p.m., Yi Hua naturally had to send Qinya and his daughter off. Donghuang Baiji was also by his side, because Yi Hua was going to be responsible for driving later on. Yi Hua's driving was like a bumper car. When he saw someone cutting in front of him, he couldn't help but step on the accelerator. When they arrived at the airport, the few people were quite eye-catching. One was a cute little girl, and 3 were super beauties. A lot of foreigners took out their phones and started taking pictures. Such beauties were truly hard to come by in 100 years. Baiji, you two can go back first, I will take good care of Ali. Qinya said with a smile while carrying Donghuang Li. Donghuang Li said, Daddy, Mommy, you two can go back first, Ali will take good care of Aunt Qing. Qing Yutong naturally disguised herself as the big sister. She wore her earphones and stood behind the big sister while sucking on the lollipop that Yi Zizi gave her. Yi Hua silently nodded his head, then said casually, Qinya, I want to ask you a few questions. Papa is going to take a test. Everyone smiled helplessly. Yi Hua said faintly, "Do you know what the punishment is?" "I'm going to give you a kiss." Chinya pouted her mouth. "I want to act cool in public again. It's good that you know. Then let me ask you the first question. What should I wear for the class reunion?" Chinya laughed lightly. "Class reunion? I'm not going at all." Donghuang Baiji covered her mouth and laughed lightly. Regarding Yi Hua's problem, the two women had already discussed about it. Aunt Qing is the best. Donghuang Li knew that she had answered correctly, and thus, Donghuang Li kissed onto Qingya's face. "You guessed correctly." Yi Hua was unhappy. "Can't I just enjoy the envious gaze of others?" Before Yi Hua could finish speaking, Qingya said, "I only have you in my heart." Donghuang Li's face became red, and she buried her head into Qingya's bosom. Yi Hua let out a sigh. "Seems like I have to think of another method." However, just as Yi Hua was feeling disappointed, Qingya still tiptoed and gave Yi Hua a kiss. Soon after, Qingya picked up her luggage and said, "All right, you two can go back now." Looking at their backs that were leaving, Yi Hua touched his cheek. Qingya is really becoming more and more mischievous. Yi Hua took a glance at his surroundings. "Humans, go and exclaim in admiration at my luck with women. There's nothing that you won't be able to enjoy in your entire life." After finished speaking, Yi Hua hugged onto Donghuang Baiji, who was beside him. "Who dares to act cool in front of me?" Donghuang Baiji was helpless. "My syndrome of acting cool after smoking is getting serious. Even when I don't smoke, I still have to do it." "Baiji, let's go back and make a baby." Yi Hua was a bit excited. "I have to warm up my body first when I go back, in case I break my waist." Donghuang Baiji sat on the driver's seat and said coquettishly, "You should rest for a few days first, don't break your waist." "Right now, I am full of vigor and vigor. I can even fight for 3 days and 3 nights. All right, let's enjoy our world together." A layer of redness appeared on Donghuang Baiji's face. "This is a rare opportunity for me to enjoy our world together." Indescribably, Donghuang Baiji started feeling nervous. Yi Hua, who was sitting on the co-pilot's seat, said faintly, "Baiji, don't be like last time, fainting in just a few hours." "Yi Hua." Donghuang Baiji pouted coquettishly. "That was something that happened 3 years ago, and you still dare to mention it." Yi Hua turned his head and looked towards Donghuang Baiji. "Baiji, I like how you looked that night. You were very beautiful." "Stop messing around, I'm driving." Donghuang Baiji bit onto her lips. "This fellow sent everyone away so that he could make a move on me. What a scheming man." Yi Hua expressed that he was very happy. "I am about to enjoy Donghuang Baiji's mature body soon. Just thinking about it makes me a bit excited." On the other side, this was the first time Donghuang Li sat on a big plane, and she was very excited. Because they were in a rush, they didn't buy any business class tickets and only bought ordinary tickets. However, since the 3 of them were sitting in a row, Donghuang Li definitely had to sit by the window to look at the white clouds. "Ali, fasten your seatbelt," Qingya instructed. Donghuang Li hurriedly fastened her seatbelt, then asked curiously, "Aunt Qing, Daddy and Mommy are giving birth at home. You won't be angry, right?" Qingya went into a daze, then stroked onto Donghuang Li's face. "If I am going to be angry, I would have long exploded from anger. Now that things have come to this, there's nothing to be angry about. Furthermore, Donghuang Baiji is also not bad. I can accept it, but she is the only one. If it was in the past I would, but now I won't." Qingya said with a gentle smile. Donghuang Li nodded her head. She had a look of, "I am a little adult, I understand everything, you don't need to explain anything to me." Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. Big sister really changed. Or rather, love has changed both brother-in-law and big sister. "Master, the battle to push down brother-in-law has already been delayed for so long, when are we going to continue?" Qing Yutong's system asked. Qing Yutong replied while listening to the song, "Let's talk about this matter in the future, I want to sleep now." In the past, I did indeed have the intention to push down brother-in-law, but after seeing how noisy they were, I didn't want to push down brother-in-law anymore. What's more, with such a strong backing like brother-in-law, What's the difference between pushing down brother-in-law or not pushing down brother-in-law? If I were to be bullied, wouldn't brother-in-law have to seek justice for me? Sister-in-law is a pretty good position. Aunt Qing. Dong Huang Li shouted out. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong both looked over. Dong Huang Li pursed her lips. Sometimes, when the two of us are together, if the two of us were to call each other Aunt Qing, the two of us would turn around to look at each other. Aunt Qing, Ali feels that I have to change the way I address you. Qin Ya smiled sweetly. All right, then what should Ali call Aunt Qing? Mommy Qing. Qin Yutong laughed, and Qin Ya poked her little sister petulantly. Looking at Ali's expectant gaze, Qin Ya spread out her hands. All right, but Ali cannot call me that in front of Mommy Qing's family. Chapter 308. Later on, if Dong Huang Li were to directly call me mother, my mother would probably go into a daze. The gray planes safely landed at Zijin City's international airport. Qin Ya was carrying on to Dong Huang Li, who had already fallen asleep, while Qin Yutong was in charge of pushing the luggage. He hailed a taxi and went straight home. I reckon that even the parents didn't know that their two daughters would come back so quickly, and Qin Ya and Qin Yutong were evidently going to give the parents a surprise. It was already 7 o'clock in the evening when he arrived home. It just so happened that it was dinner time. Qin Ya was still hugging onto Dong Huang Li, who was sleeping soundly, and Qin Yutong was secretly removing her makeup to prevent her parents from chattering endlessly. Ding dong. Ding dong. It was Uncle Fu who opened the door. Ladies, sorry, I was too excited. You guys are finally back. Uncle Fu was also very excited. This was the first time he had seen the two young ladies come back at the same time. This kind of situation was something he had seen in school. Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong greeted enthusiastically. Two misses, quickly come in, the master and the madams are currently eating dinner. Uncle Fu took over the luggage from Qin Yutong's hands, and Qin Ya and Qin Yutong walked into the house. Dong Huang Li was still sleeping soundly. It was normal for children to love sleeping. The two sisters walked to the dining room and saw that the whole family was there. Seeing that his daughter and granddaughter had returned, everyone was surprised. Zi Han and Wang Muqing were overjoyed. They had just made a phone call at noon, and they came back at night. They were really much more sensible than before. As the father, Qin Huashuan's gaze was filled with joy, but he still kept a straight face, seemingly unable to let go of his face. Old man Qin Qingren revealed out a kind smile, and old lady Mei Xuanshuang looked at her two granddaughters confusedly. Her dementia is getting more and more serious. Right now, she seems to be unable to recognize Qin Ya and Qin Yutong. However, this time, when Qin Ya came back, she had the ability to cure her grandmother's dementia. Oh, Yutong, the two of you haven't eaten yet, right? Quickly sit down and eat, Mom will scoop some rice for you. Zi Han cried tears of joy. Last time, they parted on bad terms. After such a long time, her daughter had finally returned. But who was the child his daughter was carrying? Qin Ya, the child in your bosom is? Qin Qingren asked. Qin Ya said tenderly, this is my friend's child, I will take care of him for a few days, it can be considered as a warm-up. When Qin Ya said, warm up, everyone immediately knew that there was another one in Qin Ya's stomach. Qin Yutong silently praised her big sister for being awesome. After her bloodline awakened, even her temperament has changed. Qin Qingren seemed to have gotten over it and said gravely, Qin Ya, this is someone else's child, you have to properly look after him, don't let anything happen to him. Grandpa, I know. Zi Han hurriedly picked up some food for her daughter. Don't talk anymore, Qin Ya, you eat more. Mom, you should eat more too. Dong Huang Li suddenly let out a sweet melody. She rubbed her big hazy eyes and asked, Mommy Qin, where are we? Everyone was puzzled, and Qin Yutong felt that little Ali was here to trick her big sister. Ali, we're home. Dong Huang Li went into a daze. Aunt Qin, we've arrived. Just now, Ali even dreamt of Mommy. This little Ali sure is smart. Dong Huang Li could be seen taking a look at everyone, then standing upright at the side, she shouted out, Grandpa, Grandma, Uncle, Aunt, hello everyone, my name is Dong Huang Li, it's our first time meeting, please take care of me. Right now, Ali doesn't have any income, so I don't have any money to buy gifts. Therefore, please don't blame Ali. When Ali becomes rich in the future, I will definitely not come empty-handed. Dong Huangli felt that she didn't lose face for her daddy. Since daddy didn't come, I am naturally daddy's representative. Everyone went into a daze. This little doll is so polite. If we were to let them know that she is Yi Hua's daughter, they definitely wouldn't believe it. The father has the appearance of the world's number one, and yet, his daughter is so outstanding. Qingya, whose child is this? Why is she so obedient? Wang Muqing was very fond of Dong Huangli. Wang Muqing walked over and carried Dong Huangli up. This little fellow is truly too likable. Qingya said tenderly, she is the child of a good friend. Dong Huangli loved to listen to adults praising her. Ali promised mommy that I will take good care of Aunt Qing. Dong Huangli began showing off her maturity again. Qingya and Qing Yutong laughed tenderly. Zihan also walked over and said with a smile, Ali sure is sensible. Qing Huaxian said faintly, all right, everyone, sit down and eat, the dishes are already cold. On the dining table, Dong Huangli placed all kinds of dishes on the adults' plates, causing everyone to be extremely happy. Even Qing Huaxian revealed out a rare smile. This little girl sure is sensible. Seeing that everyone was more or less happy, Dong Huangli said to Qingya in a low voice, Mommy Qing, you can be at ease, Ali will protect you. This is the mission that Daddy gave Ali. Qingya smiled very sweetly and said in a low voice, I knew that Ali is the best. That is for sure. Qing Huaxian placed down his chopsticks and said faintly, Qingya, Yutong, after coming back, don't go back to the south, that place is very chaotic right now. Zihan also followed up and said, that's right, I heard that a lot of people died there. Dad, Mom, Big Sister and I plan to rest for a week before going back. After all, there is still a lot of work to do there. Qing Yutong naturally had to speak up for Big Sister. If we don't go back, how could brother-in-law possibly bring me along to act cool? In actuality, what I am worried about the most is that brother-in-law would come over to snatch Qingya away. Who is this child? Did you give birth to a child? Mei Xuanshuang suddenly cried out in surprise, giving everyone a fright. Seeing that his wife's condition was getting serious, Qing Qingren's gaze revealed out a look of pity. Did Grandma's condition worsen again? Qingya asked gravely, not knowing if she would be able to cure Grandma's condition with her own ability. Qing Huaxian let out a breath, then said faintly, Qingya, don't worry about Grandma's condition, Grandpa has already invited Sage Doctor over to take a look at Grandma's condition. Sage Doctor? Qingya and Qing Yutong called out in puzzlement. Qing Qingren said with a smile, Qingya Tung, the two of you might not know yet, but in the north, there is a Sage Doctor. His whereabouts are very mysterious, and his medical skills are even more so like that of a god. It is very hard to invite him over even if you have money. This time, Sage Doctor coming over to take a look is also our Qing family's fortune. Qing Yutong placed down the chicken drumstick in her hand and asked curiously, Grandpa, how did you manage to invite such an awesome person over? Didn't Grandpa contact an old comrade-in-arms in the past and finally manage to find out about the whereabouts of Sage Doctor? Qingya was a bit worried. Could it be that Sage Doctor is a swindler? Grandpa, what is this Sage Doctor called? Song Huang. Qingya and Qing Yutong didn't know Song Huang. However, back then, Dong Huangli almost killed Song Huang. Back then, when Sun Yi and the others went to snatch Xiao Yi's Xianyuan sword, Song Huang was also present at that time. And at that time, Dong Huangli was fiercely shaking Daddy's hand, causing Xianyuan's sword to fly all over the place, and everyone took the opportunity to escape. Chapter 309. At this time, Qing Qingren's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his old comrade. Are you saying that Sage Doctor is coming tonight? Qing Qingren cried out in surprise. Huh? All right, I got it, thank you. Qing Qingren hurriedly expressed his thanks, then put down the phone. His wife's illness could be cured. Qingya decided to take a look first. If he is a swindler, I will chase him away and try it myself. Everyone, Quickly eat your meal and prepare to welcome Sage Doctor. Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. Suddenly, Qingya thought of Donghuang Baiji. Her voidless realm is a big power in the north. Wouldn't a small sage doctor have to obediently listen to her? However, what Qing Yutong was thinking was different. My brother-in-law is a supreme overlord. What can a mere sage doctor amount to? Even if brother-in-law sneezes, he would be able to exterminate that sage doctor. Donghuang Li's way of thinking was very simple. Daddy is the most formidable man in the world. There is no one else who can compare to him. After the meal, everyone cleaned up a little and waited quietly for the arrival of Saint Doctor. Zihan was whispering to her daughter. From time to time, she would look at her daughter's belly. She was reluctant to part with it, but she also wanted to abort it. Yeah? Do you still remember our neighbor who lived in Long and City in the past? Zihan asked probingly. Qingya recalled for a bit, then nodded her head. I still have some impression of this place, just that it suddenly disappeared afterwards. I am a bit disappointed. However, those were all just the budding desires of a young girl. Thinking about it now, it was just a fleeting moment, because her heart was now filled with Yihua. Xiao Chen came over today and right now, he looks very handsome. Zihan began praising Qin Xuanzong. Little did she know that her daughter's heart had long since been locked up by Yihua. Qingya went into a daze. Qin Xuanzong came? Donghuang Li, who was in Donghuang Li's bosom, felt that something was wrong. This Qin Xuanzong is definitely a man. Even Qing Yutong, who was at the side, also heard her big sister's cry of surprise. Something big had happened. This Qin Xuanzong was an incredible figure. Back then, it wasn't Qin Xuanzong who had a crush on big sister. Instead, it was big sister who had a crush on Qin Xuanzong. It was just that Qin Xuanzong had disappeared in the end. On that day, big sister was even prepared to send him a love letter. He never expected that Qin Xuanzong, who had disappeared for so long, would reappear. Brother-in-law, you have to be careful this time. The enemy is very strong. I'm going to the toilet. Qing Yutong muttered. Qingya still didn't know what her little sister wanted to do and hurriedly shouted out, Yutong, what are you doing? I'm going to the toilet. After saying that, he went to snitch, instantly betraying his sister. Qingya was helpless. Those are all things that happened when I was still in school, and they can't be counted anymore. Besides, didn't I not hand over the love letter back then? Didn't I still give all of my first time to Yihua? However, according to this jealous king's personality, he will definitely strike first to gain the upper hand. Although it was a matter of the past, at the very least, Yihua was still his childhood playmate. I mustn't let Yihua act recklessly. Leisure bar in Long and City, in the bedroom on the second floor. No matter what, Donghuang Baiji wouldn't be able to escape tonight. Right now, Donghuang Baiji was tightly pressed onto Yihua's body, and Yihua was enjoying Donghuang Baiji's body. Meanwhile, Donghuang Baiji was letting out an intoxicated moan. Tonight, the same thing that happened 3 years ago is going to happen again. Kissing Donghuang Baiji's cherry lips, Donghuang Baiji caressed every single inch of Donghuang Baiji's skin. As expected of my woman. Ring ring ring. His phone rang. He hung up. Ring ring ring. It rang again. Yihua, answer the phone first. Donghuang Baiji's face was red. Knowing that she wouldn't be able to escape tonight, Donghuang Baiji allowed Yihua to bully her. Yihua stood up snappily and saw that it was his sister-in-law who called him. What a good timing. After answering the phone, Yihua said gravely, Yutong, if you don't give me a proper explanation, you will be in for a good time when you come back. Qing Yutong, who was sitting on the toilet, hurriedly said, Brother-in-law, something big happened. Something big happened again. Why do you all like to describe things like this? No matter how big the matter is, in my eyes, it is just a small matter. What matter? Yihua asked gravely. Brother-in-law, your love rival has appeared. Love rival? Yihua's brows wrinkled. This term is very fresh. I only have enemies, how can I have a love rival? Qing Yutong told Yihua about the relationship between this love rival of hers, and Yihua's brows wrinkled more and more. This man is actually Qingya's crush when she was young. Damn it, Qinya has been mine since she was young. Which man dares to touch her? Should I go and kill that guy right now? Chen Xuanzongs. I have to let him know, don't even think about my woman. Brother-in-law, calm down, don't get agitated. Qin Yutong hurriedly persuaded. What's the matter? Yihua's tone was a bit irritable. If that guy likes Qinya, it would be fine, but since that guy is someone that Qinya likes, then I definitely have to kill him. Qin Yutong said attentively, Brother-in-law, big sister knows that I am secretly informing you right now. If you kill that guy, it is a small matter if you die, but I'm afraid that big sister will mistakenly think that you are killing people randomly. Yihua felt that what Qin Yutong said was a bit reasonable. This Qinya has been very arrogant recently. Killing that guy is easy, but the main point is that Qinya would quarrel with me again. I am currently in the upper hand. If I were to kill that guy, wouldn't I be in a disadvantageous position again? Brother-in-law, this is actually a very small matter. Isn't big sister's heart currently filled with you, brother-in-law? If you were to kill that guy, wouldn't it ruin brother-in-law's image? Furthermore, aren't there me and Ali watching over you? Qin Yutong was very naughty right now. She just wanted to see her brother-in-law act cool. If I were to kill that guy in an instant, who would brother-in-law look for to act cool to? At that time, big sister would even say that brother-in-law killed the innocent. Yutong, your analysis is not bad. My image is more important. Properly watch over your big sister. If there is any abnormal movement, immediately report it to me. Yes, I guarantee that I will complete the mission. The two of them were just like the liaison between spies. After placing down his phone, Yihua lost all interest in touching the Empress. Dong Huang Baiji hugged onto Yihua from behind and asked tenderly, did something happen? Sigh, Qin Ya's secret love has appeared. Yihua was very depressed. On one hand, I want to secretly kill that guy, but on the other hand, I have to take care of my image. I am not a person who would willfully kill the innocent. What I said is a bit fake, I am just sighing. Dong Huang Baiji laughed lightly. There is nothing to be afraid of. I still understand Qinya. The only person in her heart is you. That's for sure. If not, I would have killed my way over right now. All right, don't be angry. Qinya will be able to handle this kind of matter by herself. While lying on the bed, Yihua hugged onto the Empress and asked curiously, I have to ask you first, do you have a secret love? I do. Dong Huang Baiji said gravely. Yihua was very unhappy. Why do two women have a secret love? Who? Who else can it be, isn't it you? Dong Huang Baiji hammered onto Yihua's chest with her small fists. You abandoned me for 3 years, and every night, I dream of killing you. Dong Huang Baiji said petulantly. Chapter 310. I know that it has been hard on you. While caressing onto Dong Huang Baiji's body, Yihua consoled. Dong Huang Baiji smiled tenderly. Go and sleep, we still have to wake up early tomorrow morning to send Zizi to register. Tonight, Yihua didn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. Not only tonight, even if Qinya didn't return, Yihua wouldn't have the mood to do anything to the Empress. On the other side, Qin Yutong walked out from the bathroom, and immediately, she was glared at by Qinya. Qin Yutong made a funny face. Mom, I'm going to the bathroom. Qinya said tenderly. I have to explain this matter to Yihua. If not, with the jealous king's personality, he would definitely be preparing to stir up trouble right now. Zihan was very puzzled. What was going on with these two? After closing the door, Qinya gave Yihua a call, but who knew that Yihua's phone would be turned off? Is he angry? Or was he sleeping? Before Yihua sleeps, he likes to switch off his phone to prevent others from disturbing him. Left with no other choice, Qinya could only send a message over. The message was very simple and also very straightforward. Hubby, I love you. Heaving a sigh of relief, he washed his hands and looked at himself in the mirror. Qinya let out a light sigh. She is becoming more and more beautiful. This is truly troublesome. After walking out of the bathroom, Qinya carried Dong Huang Li, then rolled her eyes at her little sister. Traitor. Qin Yutong expressed that she was doing this for your own good, and wanted to give brother-in-law a heads up first. Don't let brother-in-law bump into this at that time. If that happens, then the world would really fall apart. Ding dong, ding dong. When the doorbell rang, it affected the hearts of the entire Qing family. Of course, other than Qingya and his sister, there was also little Ali. The butler, Uncle Fu, was preparing to open the door, and Qing Yutong hurriedly shouted out, "Uncle Fu, I'll go open the door." Qing Yutong wanted to see just how awesome this sage doctor was. To actually be unable to invite him over in all kinds of ways, this sage doctor was truly too good at acting. He walked to the door and opened it. There was a handsome man standing outside the door. He was wearing a white shirt and jeans. He was clean and had a faint smile on his face. Shouldn't he be arrogant? This can't be a fake saint doctor, right? Is this the Qing family? Song Huang asked in a light voice. Qing Yutong asked curiously, "You are the sage doctor, right? I don't deserve to be called a holy doctor. I can only treat difficult and complicated diseases." Song Huang said modestly. This girl in front of him was very special. She was also very beautiful. Song Huang had seen quite a lot of beautiful girls in his life, but it was rare to see a girl like this. Originally, Qing Yutong wanted to kill off the other party's imposing manner, but she didn't expect that this sage doctor would be so low profile. "Please come over, remember to change your shoes," Qing Yutong said. This caused Song Huang to go into a daze for a moment. A girl with quite a personality. Qing Qingren and Qing Huaxian walked over, and when they heard that their daughter actually told sage doctor to change his shoes, they immediately became speechless. "What are you talking about? Hurry up and pour some tea." "Holy doctor, my daughter doesn't know any better. She doesn't need to change her shoes," Qing Huaxian said hurriedly. "This sage doctor is not someone that we can afford to offend. In the north, how many families have to give face to him, let alone a small Qing family?" Song Huang smiled. "It's all right. Men were like this. It didn't matter if they met a beautiful woman, but if they met someone they didn't like, then there would be a problem." Everyone laughed dryly. They didn't expect this saint doctor to be so amiable and approachable. "Qing family chief, where is he?" Song Huang changed into slippers and asked curiously. "Sage doctor, please follow me." Qing Qingren brought Song Huang to the bedroom on the second floor. When Song Huang passed by the living room, he saw Qingya and Dong Huangli. "I didn't expect that this Qing family would actually have two such beautiful daughters. However, this Qingya seems to be pregnant." Everyone followed him upstairs. At this time, Mei Xuanshuang was watching SpongeBob SquarePants, clapping and laughing from time to time. Qing Qingren said worriedly, "Sage doctor, do you think my husband's illness can still be cured?" Song Huang walked forward and observed the situation for a while, then said, "Clan leader Qing, don't worry, I can cure him." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief, and at this moment, Qing Yutong also came over with a cup of tea, then said casually, "Here, have some tea." "Be a bit more polite," Qing Huaxian shouted out in a low voice. "The other party is an outstanding and famous sage doctor. It would be bad if they offended sage doctor." Song Huang took the cup of boiling water and smiled. "It's all right." After drinking a mouthful of boiling water, Song Huang smiled and said, "Miss Qing is really considerate of this song. I'm afraid that the temperature of the water is more than 100 degrees Celsius. I have never seen someone who can act cool like this, and Qing Yutong can be said to be convinced." "Yutong, get out!" Qing Huaxian shouted out. "This is too unruly. Don't you know what time it is?" Song Huang placed down the cup of tea, then said with a light smile, "Everyone, please go out for a while. I need a quiet environment." Qing Chengren nodded his head, then everyone left the bedroom and waited outside. "Big sister, I have tested him. This sage doctor does have some ability," Qing Yutong said in a low voice. Qingya smiled bitterly and shook her head. "However, now that you have brother-in-law backing you up, you are indeed able to do whatever you want." Qing Yutong smiled with her eyes squinted. "Isn't that all because big sister has good eyesight? If not, how would I, your little sister, be able to do whatever I want?" "Then, can Ali also do whatever she wants?" Dong Huangli asked naively. Qingya naturally wouldn't be like Yi Hua, who taught a child recklessly. Of course Ali can't, he has to listen to adults. What Aunt Qing did just now was wrong, Ali cannot learn from her. Qingya said in a low voice. Dong Huangli nodded her head, then said casually, Aunt Qing, actually, the effect of the water that you poured out from the toilet bowl just now should be better. Qingya, Qing Yutong, Ali, who did you learn this from? You can't play tricks on people like this. Qingya criticized Ali harshly. Since a child was young, she had to be taught the correct way of thinking. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Ali learned it from watching TikTok. The two sisters took a look at each other. This TikTok is truly harmful. Ali, in the future, you cannot casually learn things that you are not good at. If not, your daddy will spank your butt. Qingya scared Dong Huangli a bit. Ali won't learn it anymore. This is what a good child should be. Just as the two of them were chatting, the bedroom door was pushed open, and with a relaxed smile on his face, Song Huang could be seen walking out of the bedroom. It's done. For a sage doctor like Song Huang, treating a person with dementia was very easy. Even the current Qingyo was able to do it. Qing Qingren and Qing Huaxian hurriedly thanked Song Huang, then walked into the bedroom to check on the situation. No matter what, this sage doctor cured their grandma's illness. Qingya and Qing Yutong had to thank Song Huang. You're welcome, this is also the duty of a doctor. This Song Huang didn't even blink his eyes when he lied. From the looks of it, Song Huang is already interested in Qing Yutong. There's no helping it, who asked Qing Yutong to be so beautiful? If Song Huang didn't have any feelings for her, that would be a lie. Qingya seemed to have also sensed that this sage doctor had been looking at her little sister. Qing Yutong seemed to have also sensed that sage doctor was looking at her little sister. Qing Yutong seemed to have sensed that sage doctor was looking at her little sister. Chapter 311. Sage Doctor, it has been hard on you. Go downstairs and eat some desserts. Qing Huaxian walked out of the bedroom and said respectfully. Qing Qingren didn't come out, and was accompanying his wife in the room. On the other hand, Song Huang seemed to be quite courteous, and a trace of a smile appeared on his face as he said, Then, I will have to trouble you, clan leader Qing. If this was in the past, would Song Huang be so polite? That nose had already ascended to the heavens. Qing Huaxian looked at sage doctor's gaze, then looked at his own daughter, Yutong, and joy appeared in his heart. Wang Muqing, who was at the back, seemed to have noticed something. Could it be that this saint doctor had taken a fancy to her daughter? That was great news. This sage doctor was a famous person in the north, and there were countless people waiting for him to save their lives. If he married Yutong, that would be incredible. Zihan was a little envious. Her daughter was determined to follow one of them? A woman who owned a bar and gave birth to his child. Just thinking about this gave him a headache. Yutong, go and get some pastries. Wang Muqing hurriedly asked her daughter to prepare the food. She thought to herself, you have to perform well. If you are chosen by the sage doctor, you will become a phoenix. But then again, when the two sisters came back today, they seemed to be much more beautiful. It was really strange. Did they team up and go for plastic surgery? Qing Yutong still didn't know what her mother was thinking, and she helplessly answered, then walked downstairs. The group of people sat on the sofa in the living room. Qingyo was still hugging onto Dong Huangli, and Dong Huangli was currently playing with Su Fuji's lollipop. Dong Huangli's lollipop was even stuffed with the lollipop, then curiously observed Dong Huangli. Miss Yutong hasn't gotten married yet, right? Song Huang asked curiously. Everyone was shocked. As expected of a saint doctor, he was a little too direct. Qingyo was also startled by Song Huang's straightforwardness. However, Qingyo was feeling a bit displeased in her heart. After all, there was something wrong with Song Huang's attitude. It was as if Song Huang was telling Qingya that if Qingya wasn't married to Qingya, she would marry Qingya to Qingya. If Yi Hua were to hear what Yi Hua just said, he would definitely give Yi Hua a big slap. Acting cool in front of me, are you tired of living? Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Aunt Qing is definitely not going to become your wife. You are a toad that wants to eat swan meat. Li's analogy was very appropriate. As Qing Yutong's mother, Wang Muqing said with a tender voice, Up until now, my Yutong still hasn't even had a boyfriend. She is very pure. He and Yi Zizi worked together to wreak havoc in the Ying family, causing the two brothers to fall out with one another. Song Huang should be worried about me. I actually went to provoke Yi Hua's sister-in-law. Song Huang understood what Wang Muqing meant. So she has never touched a man before. Not bad. It's not easy to find such an innocent girl these days. I even saw Yutong's movie last year. It's really not bad. Song Huang had indeed seen Qing Yutong before. It was just that when he had just met Qing Yutong, he wasn't able to tell that the current Qing Yutong was much more beautiful than before, and Qing Yutong was on a completely different level compared to before. Just now, after careful observation, he recognized that it was that big star. Qin Huaxian said with a smile, "My daughter is also going there to play around. Sage doctor, please don't laugh at me." Qing family head, don't say that. Yutong is a pretty good girl. Song Huang immediately praised. This made Wang Muqing very happy. This saint doctor is definitely not a problem. As long as my daughter is willing, Qing family will have a son-in-law who is a saint doctor. At this moment, Qing Yutong came over while carrying the dessert, and there was nothing abnormal on her face, and there was even a light smile on her face. If Yi Zizi was here, she would know that Qing Yutong wanted to do something bad. Originally, he was here to treat his illness, but now, it was more like a blind date. Yutong, peel an apple for Sage Doctor. Wang Muqing signaled her daughter with her eyes. Speak properly to Sage Doctor. In the future, Qing family will have to rely on you. Your sister has indeed fallen. There is no hope for her anymore. Qing Yutong snorted coldly in her heart. I have only helped brother-in-law peel crayfish before, and now, I don't even want to peel crayfish for other men anymore. Here, the taste will be better if you eat it with the skin on. Qing Yutong said with a gentle smile as she passed the apple to Song Huang. Song Huang did not say anything and took the apple with a smile. He even took a bite of the apple. Not bad, the taste is indeed good. Damn it, even if Qing Yutong gave you a pile of shit, you would also say that the taste is not bad, right? Qing Huaxian and Wang Muqing glared at their daughter. Don't learn from your sister. This is a rare opportunity. You have to properly grasp it. Qing Ye smiled and did not say anything. My younger sister is starting to cause trouble again. What were you two talking about just now? Qing Yutong took the initiative to strike up a conversation, appearing to be very cheerful and very straightforward. This was what attracted Song Huang's attention. Wang Muqing said with a gentle voice, "We were talking about how you are already so big, yet you still haven't found a boyfriend." Sigh, my expectations are too high. Qing Yutong sighed, as if there isn't a single man in this world that is worthy of me. Brother-in-law is too handsome, and he is too good at acting cool. Song Huang asked curiously, I wonder how high Yutong's expectations are? Is he very familiar with you? And he even called me Yutong Yutong. Song Huang's parents immediately looked towards Qing Yutong. That gaze of theirs seemed to be telling Qing Yutong not to act recklessly. I know. Dong Huangli, who was sitting on Qing Ye's lap, suddenly raised her hand and shouted out. Looking at the child who was in Qing Ye's lap, Song Huang felt that the child was very cute. Little friend, why don't you tell us about it then? Originally, Qing Huaxian wanted to stop Qing Yutong. After all, if a child knew something, they would always talk about it. However, since Sage Doctor had already spoken, it would be embarrassing for Qing Yutong to stop Qing Yutong. Dong Huangli blinked her big eyes and said, Aunt Qing likes to play games. Those who are good at playing games can bring her to a chicken dinner. Qing Ye couldn't help but laugh. Qing Yutong laughed too. However, the other people's expressions were a bit stiff. Playing games? Those who are seated here are all people who are capable of doing big things, who would go and play games. Ali knows me the best, Qing Yutong said with a smile, then even blew a kiss to Ali. Dong Huangli was not to be outdone and blew a kiss to Ali as well. Song Huang laughed lightly. A celebrity actually likes to play games. This is a bit interesting. In actuality, what Qing Yutong said just now might not be effective, but after saying it like that, Song Huang felt that Qing Yutong was even more extraordinary. Wang Muqing suggested, I heard that there are a few good movies being released recently, you all can go and watch them. I might as well play games. Qing Yutong pouted her mouth. Only by watching a movie with brother-in-law will it be interesting. Not only will I be able to watch a movie, I will also be able to watch them quarrel, and then my big sister will instantly become terrified. Song Huang was also not very interested and said, "Tonight, there will be an annual auction at Yuan Linglong. It should be very interesting. It just so happens that I was invited, so I am preparing to go." Qin Ya and Qin Yutong had never heard of this Yuan Linglong before, but Qing Huaxian had heard of this Yuan Linglong before. This Yuan Linglong is incredible. It is said that it is a place opened by a super big figure, and even I am not qualified to enter it. The things that are being auctioned are all rare items, and the important thing is that I will be able to get to know a lot of big figures and expand my circle of friends. If my daughter doesn't want to go, I would like to go and take a look. In actuality, this Yuan Linglong was opened by the northern aristocratic family, Yi family. Back then, when they were fighting over the 9 demons punishing tower, Tang Wushuang even called Yi Xiao over to help them, but unfortunately, Yi Xiao left in the end. Chapter 312. Qin Yutong was a bit interested in this auction, and she asked towards Qin Ya, "Big sister, are you going?" Song Huang understood that Qin Yutong wanted to find someone to accompany her. "Miss Qing, how about we go together?" Song Huang invited with a smile on his face. "Bringing a woman like Qin Ya by my side is also giving me face." Dong Huang Li pulled onto Qin Ya's arm and said sweetly, "Aunt Qing, Ali wants to go and play." Originally, Qin Ya didn't want to go, because she promised Yi Hua that she wouldn't attend any banquets. "Aunt Qing," Dong Huang Li acted coquettishly. Zihan also persuaded, just go and experience the world." Qin Ya, Qin Yutong, experience the world? Qin Yutong followed brother-in-law to subdue Ying family. That scene, that was the world. All of Ying family's people kneeled on the ground respectfully, not daring to be disrespectful towards brother-in-law. If anyone dared to cause trouble, they would turn into a pool of blood. That day, brother-in-law was simply too handsome. Meanwhile, Qin Ya couldn't help but think back to the battle at Voidless Realm that day. That scene should be the world, right? After all, that was a battle between 2 big powers, and that scene was just a cheap trick played by the underlings of the big powers. Using Yi Hua's words, when a group of salted fishes were gathered together, they would compete to see who was salter. Of course, you can also go and see how a group of salted fishes compete to see who was salter. That kind of scene should be very funny. Unable to withstand Dong Huang Li's acting coquettishly, Qin Ya said dotingly, all right, I'll bring you to play." "That's great." After speaking, Dong Huang Li kissed towards Qin Ya. Qin Yutong smiled, "Ali, you're not good enough." Dong Huang Li jumped down from Qin Ya's embrace, then jumped into Qin Yutong's embrace and kissed her. Song Huang didn't feel disgusted. After all, she's just a child. "It's getting late, let's set off." Song Huang stood up and said, "Tonight's Yuan Linglong auction could be considered as a small gathering for the northern powers. It would be good for me to bring them to experience the world, and it would also allow me to display my abilities." Qing Huaxian instructed his 2 daughters in a low voice. "You 2 perform well, don't lose Qing family's face. Especially you, Yutong, take good care of Sage Doctor." The sisters sighed softly. "We're just there to kill time. We really don't think that they're that powerful." After that, Wang Muqing also came over to remind her daughter to behave well in front of Saint Doctor and not to throw a tantrum. After everyone left, Zihan secretly gave Chen Xuanzong a call. Coincidentally, Chen Xuanzong was already in Yuan Linglong. 2 men were kneeling in front of him. "Aunt Z, I understand. Thank you." After hanging up the phone, a trace of a smile appeared on Chen Xuanzong's face. Because he was about to meet Qin Ya soon, he was a bit excited and also a bit nervous. However, when he saw the 2 people in front of him, his smile gradually sank, and his black eyes once again revealed a murderous aura. "I'll ask you one last time. Who sent you to destroy my Qin family?" After searching for a long time these days, most of the assassins from back then were dead. Only these 2 changed professions, and they were even big bosses now, living very freely. We really don't know. Yes, we are very sorry about what happened back then. Chen Xuanzong's killing intent surged as he grabbed out with his palm. One of the men's expression changed. He felt as if his neck was being strangled, and a sense of suffocation surged up. He couldn't help but grab his neck and roll on the ground. Gradually, the man stopped struggling. His eyes were filled with fear. The man kneeling on the side was a little scared. His forehead was covered in sweat. He hadn't killed anyone in many years, so he was not used to seeing such a scene. "Speak and I'll spare your life," Chen Xuanzong questioned coldly. The man gasped for air and asked, "Are you really going to let me go?" "That's right." The man steeled his heart and said, "It's the Shao family's Shao Yi." Chen Xuanzong frowned. He picked up the wine glass and shook it lightly. "The Shao family is in the north. Why should my small Chen family be exterminated?" "I don't know either. I heard that it's for the ancient godly item. As for the rest, I really don't know." Chen Xuanzong raised his head and drank the red wine in his cup. He clenched his fists tightly. The man's eyes were wide open, and blood flowed out of his eyes. Then, blood flowed out of his 7 apertures. "You lied to me, do I, Chen Xuanzong, still need to explain to you when I kill someone?" "You!" Looking at the man in front of him fall, the hostility in Chen Xuanzong's heart didn't lessen. Instead, it became even stronger. "North Shao family, Shao Yi. Ancient godly item. From the looks of it, back then, my parents knew something that they shouldn't have known, which was why they were killed by Shao Yi. Shao Yi, you killed my entire family. Even so, I will still kill your entire family." Demon Emperor versus Immortal Emperor. This would be a good show that Yi Hua would like to watch. On the other side, Qin Ye and Qin Yutong had already arrived at Yuan Linglong. A clubhouse like this would usually be located in the outskirts. It was clean, and the air was good. Of course, what was even more convenient was that the clubhouse would be able to bury people after killing someone. However, there had never been a murder case in this place. After all, this was the territory of the North's Yi family. The family heads wouldn't dare to cause trouble, and the other 4 great families would also give face to them. Of course, there was no need for Voidless Realm to give face to them. Yuan Linglong was located at the center of the lake. This was a man-made lake. Of course, there was also a small island at the center of the lake. The entire building was about the size of a football field. The entire building wasn't tall, and it only had 1 floor. The roof frame was made from top-notch mahogany. The pillars were slightly inclined outwards, and the 4 corners were tall, forming an overhanging eave. The roof was decorated with yellow and green glazed tiles. Looking at the building from afar, it looked very majestic. There was a long stone bridge that was connected to the shore. On both sides of the bridge, there were stone railings and stone pillars, and on every pillar, there were stone lions with different postures engraved on it. Some of the stone lions were hugging each other, some of the stone lions were whispering into each other's ears, and there were all kinds of postures that were vivid and lifelike. Standing on top of the bridge and enjoying the gentle breeze that caressed one's face during summer like this was a very comfortable thing. Meanwhile, there were all kinds of luxurious cars parked at the shore, and it was more than enough to hold a car show. Everyone got off the car and walked onto the bridge, then entered Yuan Linglong. Qin Ye and Qin Yutong got off the car at the same time. Although the 2 of them weren't wearing any formal attire, their appearance immediately attracted the attention of the crowd. After all, with their appearance, no matter what they wore, they would still be beautiful. The 2 sisters sized up the place for a bit. This was no different from an ordinary gathering. Everyone was wearing gorgeous attire, and the women were competing with each other's beauty. There were even some men who were surrounded by 4 or 5 beautiful women. Looking at it this way, Qin Ye felt that Yi Hua had become much more well-behaved. I reckon that he is currently doing it with Bai Ji right now. This bastard can't wait for me to come out. When Song Huang appeared, sure enough, a commotion broke out among the crowd. Since Song Huang had the power to decide the life and death of a lot of people, even aristocratic families had to be polite to Song Huang. That is Sage Dr. Song Huang. It really is Sage Doctor. I didn't expect that he would also come today. Who are the two women besides Sage Dr. Song? I have never seen them before. Chapter 3:13. The surrounding people began to discuss spiritedly, guessing the relationship between the two of them. From the looks of it, Qin Yutong's change was indeed very big. No one was able to recognize that she was that big celebrity from back then. Song Huang walked over to Qin Yutong's side, then asked attentively, "Are you feeling all right?" Looking at the building in the middle of the lake, Qin Yutong spread out her hands. "It's not bad, right?" Song Huang laughed lightly. This Qin Yutong's appetite is a bit too much. Dong Huang Li jumped down from Qin Ya's body, then bounced and ran towards the stone bridge. Qin Ya hurriedly ran towards Dong Huang Li. "Ah Li, don't run around." Dong Huang Li hurriedly ran over. "I'm sorry, Aunt Qing. Ali won't run around recklessly anymore." "Aunt Qing, don't run around recklessly too. Be careful of your little brother." "How did Ali know it's the younger brother?" "Hee, Ali can sense it." Dong Huang Li rubbed onto Qin Ya's lower abdomen. This was the connection between their bloodlines. At this moment, a white Bentley drove over from afar. Some people knew who it was when they saw the license plate. I didn't expect Xiao Yi of the Xiao family to appear. Yeah, I heard that the Xiao family was almost finished. I heard about it too, but it seems to be fine now. When Xiao Yi and Xu Nan appeared in front of everyone was sure that the Xiao family was about to rise again. As long as Xiao Yi didn't die, he would have the strength to lead the Xiao family to the top. Xiao Yi and Xu Nan noticed Song Huang's figure, but they did not talk to each other. Back then, when Xiao Yi was injured, Xu Nan had sought help from Song Huang, but he was rejected. And so, a grudge was formed between them. In the end, Song Huang even came to snatch the Xianyuan sword away from Xiao Yi, and the relationship between Xu Nan and Song Huang had reached the freezing point. However, the two of them also noticed that Qin Ya was frowning slightly. Because when I see Qin Ya, I will think of that man. When they thought of that man, they would think of Black Robe and those tragic events. But until now, Xiao Yi still doesn't know if the person behind the scenes is Qin Ya's man or not. After all, the one who wants to collect the debt is the black gown, and above the black gown is that shadowy person. How could the two of them be that man's subordinates? But why would they help that man collect his debt? "Brother Xiao, it's better to believe it," Xu Nan reminded softly. It had to be said that Xu Nan was smarter than Nangong Sini. So, a man's success depended on whether his wife was smart enough. His wife's suggestion might be the beginning of a meteoric rise. Of course, it might also be the beginning of a bottomless abyss. Nangong Sini's suggestion was destined to be the result, but Xu Nan's suggestion was more pertinent. Although there was a suspicion of flattery, it was all for her husband's future development. Xiao Yi nodded his head, then brought along his wife and walked towards Qin Ya. However, from everyone's point of view, it looked like this was heading towards Song Huang. Xiao Yi actually went to find Saint Doctor? What do you mean? The two of them seem to have a grudge. Is Xiao Yi planning to lower his head? It looks like Xiao Yi has been dealt a heavy blow and has let go of his previous arrogance. Someone finally taught the act tough king a lesson. Everyone's guess was indeed correct. Someone was the one who taught Wang Xiao how to be a new person. However, that person was indeed not Song Huang. Instead, that person was Death Mage. To be more precise, that person was Yi Hua, who no one knew at all. Most probably, after all of them were played to death, they still wouldn't know who the person was in the end. Song Huang stared at Xiao Yi, who was walking towards him, and his expression gradually darkened. Did this Xiao Yi really dare to attack him in public? He wouldn't dare to do such a stupid thing. In actuality, Xiao Yi's strength was not weak. In fact, his strength had even reached the level of an aristocratic family's patriarch. Song Huang's strength was about the same as Xiao Yi's. However, in the end, Xiao Yi possessed the Xianyuan sword. The deterrence brought about by this primordial godly item was extraordinary. Even Song Huang had to weigh his options. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared at the very last moment on that day. He didn't want to fight head-on, as the gains would not make up for the losses. Of course, Qin Ya also noticed Xiao Yi. Ever since that day when they gambled, they hadn't seen each other. The scene that happened that night was still fresh in his memory. He had lost quite a bit of money, and in the end, Yihua actually got his money back. As for Qin Yutong, she met Xiao Yi once on that day when they were eating fish. At that time, she was disguised as Big Sister, so the current Xiao Yi didn't recognize Qin Yutong. As the two of them got closer and closer, everyone became a little nervous. This was because the two of them had different expressions on their faces, as if a great battle was about to break out. However, what happened next caused everyone to be extremely puzzled. Xiao Yi actually walked past Song Huang. He didn't say a word. Song Huang himself was also stunned. Just now, he had even prepared his speech, but he didn't expect that Xiao Yi would actually walk straight towards him. This damned Xiao Yi, he actually doesn't put me, sage doctor, in his eyes. F***K, this act Wang Xiao still likes to act cool as usual. That's right, look at sage doctor's expression, he looks as if he just ate a fly. As expected of Xiao family's family head, this act of acting cool is really good. I don't even give in to him, I only give in to him. However, what happened next caused everyone to be dumbstruck. Because Xiao Yi didn't act cool anymore, and instead, he lowered his status? Because he actually cupped his hands towards a peerlessly beautiful man, and that appearance of his was very respectful. Xiao Yi walked in front of Qingya, cupped his hands and said respectfully, "Xiao Qing, I trust that you have been well since we last met." "Xiao Qing, hello." Shu Nan, who was at the back, was also incomparably respectful. Qingya was very puzzled. I still remember that day when I met Xiao Yi while eating fish, he didn't have this kind of attitude. Although he was polite, he still had that arrogant attitude. And look at now, he completely lowered his status and came to greet me. Just what is going on? Qin Yutong was able to guess a bit. It is definitely because of brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is just too charming. Even though he is currently sleeping, he still came over by air. 666. Dong Huangli held onto Qingya's hand and sized Xiao Yi up with her big eyes. Dong Huangli didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. Even if Xiao Yi directly kneeled down, Dong Huangli would also feel that it couldn't be any more normal. Mommy receives people's worship every day, and Mommy also listens to Daddy's words, which means that Daddy is definitely the biggest, and Mommy Qing is Mommy's best friend, thus, Mommy is worthy of being worshipped. CEO Xiao is being too polite. Qingya said tenderly, she didn't treat Xiao Yi coldly. After all, Qingya wasn't that kind of woman, she appeared to be amiable and approachable. However, if it was Donghuang Baiji who was here, she wouldn't treat Xiao Yi like that. She who was used to being an empress, other than listening to Yihua, she would have a cold attitude towards everyone, other than the people around Yihua. Song Huang, who was at the side, tightly wrinkled his brows. How does this Qingya know Xiao Yi? And why is this Xiao Yi so respectful towards Qingya? Strange, this is too strange. Could it be that this woman has another identity? That shouldn't be the case. Although Qing family is rich, their family is still at the bottom of the family, and it shouldn't be possible for them to get acquainted with a person like Xiao Yi. Xiao Yi revealed out a polite smile and asked, "Co Qing's husband didn't come?" When Xiao Yi said the sentence, everyone more or less knew what he meant. The reason why Xiao Yi did all of this was because of this woman's husband. If that is the case, who is this woman's husband? To actually be able to make Xiao Yi bow down. Chapter 314. What was certain was that this was an existence that was more pretentious than the tough King Xiao. Song Huang, who was at the side, was also very curious. This Qingya is pregnant, that means she definitely has a man. Originally, judging from the attitude of Qing family, they weren't satisfied with Qingya's pregnancy. However, judging from the current situation, Qing family still didn't know about the inside story. Yutong, who is your big sister's husband? Song Huang asked Qing Yutong in a low voice. Qing Yutong pursed her lips, then said faintly, "My brother-in-law, that is a godlike man. If not, how could he have a woman like my big sister?" Song Huang lightly laughed. The godlike man was probably just bragging, but he was definitely a very powerful man. Otherwise, Xiao Yi wouldn't act like this. Facts have proven that you should never underestimate your enemy's strength, because when you meet them, it will be too late for regrets. Then, why didn't your brother-in-law come today? Song Huang asked curiously. He really wanted to take a look at his brother-in-law. Dong Huangli pouted her mouth and said, "Uncle, my daddy is very busy." A child's words carry no harm. Everyone understood what he meant. Others wouldn't even bother coming to such a place. You all are mistaken. If Yi Hua knew that there were salted fishes competing in saltiness, he would definitely come over to watch the show. In fact, he would even call his subordinates over to watch the show. In the end, he would let them know why they are salted fishes. Qinya carried Dong Huangli into her embrace, then said with a slight smile, "And he has been rather busy recently." He silently thought to himself, "He's busy giving birth to a child with the Empress, this pervert." Xiao Yi took a look at Song Huang, then said to Qinya, "Co Qin, do you want to go in together with us?" Xiao Yi's attitude was one of respect, but in Song Huang's eyes, Xiao Yi's attitude was equivalent to Song Huang tearing down his own face. After all, Qinya and Qin Yutong were brought here by Song Huang himself. "Xiao Yi, this isn't a good idea, right?" Song Huang said in a deep voice. Since Xiao Yi was prepared to slap his own face, there was no need for him to save face. Xiao Yi slowly turned his head and coldly said, "I'm talking to Xiao Qin, when is it your turn to interrupt?" The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became gloomy. Everyone held their breath. Would this year's auction be as dull as the previous years? There would probably be a good show to watch. The act tough king had started to lead the tempo. Moreover, he was quite angry. Xiao Yi was indeed very angry. It would have been fine if Song Huang hadn't said anything. But once Song Huang said something like that, he couldn't take it anymore. "You actually dared to come and snatch my sword that day. Do you really think that you have a good temper? This emperor has a belly full of anger right now." Qin Yutong felt that she did not come here for nothing today. A good show is about to begin. However, it is a pity that pitiful Zizi he is locked up at home, and tomorrow he still has to go and register to be a primary school student, and he missed out on such a good show. But don't worry, I'll take a picture and send it to her. Let her be envious of me. The little wretch would definitely go crazy with jealousy. When Song Huang heard what Xiao Yi said, his face became terrifyingly gloomy. "Xiao Yi, you better watch your mouth. Song Huang, I advise you to not provoke me. Otherwise, I will teach you how to save yourself." Xiao Yi gradually released a stream of spiritual qi, and it pressed towards Song Huang. Song Huang couldn't help but furrow his brows when he felt the rich spiritual energy in Xiao Yi's body. Xiao Yi's strength had risen again. With the addition of the Xianyuan sword, he was indeed no match for them. "Damn it. Alright, both of you, stop talking," Qinya said faintly while hugging onto Dong Huangli. This sentence that Qinya said softly was very tasteful, to the point that it was somewhat similar to Dong Huang Baiji's style. I reckon that after staying with Dong Huang Baiji for a long time during those few days, a bit of Empress aura had also been infused into Dong Huang Baiji's body. Furthermore, Dong Huang Baiji's bloodline had also awakened, and this sentence of Dong Huang Baiji's was simply like a huge pressure that made it hard for people to breathe. Everyone who was present felt that Dong Huang Baiji's words were very strange. This woman doesn't have any spiritual qi fluctuation, but the words that she spoke were filled with a sense of majesty, and the words that she spoke were unable to help but make people submit to her. This was the passive power of bloodline. Qin Yutong let out a deep sigh. Big sister is starting to act cool too. My God, when did it become my turn to act cool? This is so painful. In actuality, Yihua loved to see Qinya act cool the most. To be more precise, he loved to see his woman act cool the most. Seeing his woman act cool the most was a kind of visual and auditory enjoyment. Everyone went into a daze for a second, but very quickly, they came back to their senses. Xiao Yi naturally wouldn't say anything, and he didn't dare to say anything either. After listening to what his wife said, he would rather believe that it was true. However, Song Huang refused to accept this. "I was actually frightened by a woman, and I have lost all of my face." In actuality, everyone felt that they had lost all of their face, because they were all shocked by what Qinya had said just now. However, when they thought about that mysterious man, they didn't dare to act recklessly. What if I step on a landmine? It must be said that the way of thinking of these people was very correct. If we were to really provoke Chinya today, we would have to wait for the Supreme Overlord's fury. The powers in the north would have to be completely wiped out. Suddenly, from afar, 3 Maybach formed a motorcade, and Xiao Yi's gaze became serious. Tang family's motorcade has arrived. That's right, I heard that Xiao Yi and Tang Wushuang have fallen out. Seems like a big fight is going to happen. Everyone discussed in low voices, and Xiao Yi was also listening to what they were saying. Even now, I can still feel the coldness of that knife that was stabbed in the back by my good brother in the past. However, no one would have guessed that Tang Wushuang's lamp had already been extinguished. Tang Wushuang could be seen coming down from the car. Tang Wushuang was wearing a black suit, and he appeared to be very calm. However, everyone discovered that today, Tang Wushuang actually had a beard. In the past, Tang Wushuang's beard would always be clean, and with a look, Tang Wushuang had indeed become a bit more manly. Tang Wushuang was only wearing a fake beard for the sake of concealing himself. Recently, he had been cultivating his master's cultivation technique, and his improvement was indeed very fast. However, the side effects were also very fast. His chest muscles had actually expanded, his hands had become slender, his waist had also become slender, his Adam's apple had also disappeared, and his face was also slowly changing. Recently, his vocal cords had also changed, and it was reckoned that not long later, his voice would become a female's voice. More importantly, the wound healed, and became, every day, Tang Wushuang would be scared awake by himself, and because of this, he didn't dare to sleep on the same bed as his wives. After getting off the car, Tang Wushuang didn't stop. Instead, he walked to the other side of the car and opened the car door. A man in flowery shorts and a white shirt appeared. He was looking at something on his phone with great interest. He was precisely Tang Wushuang's master, Gui Qingren. The people who were present were very unfamiliar with this man. However, from Tang Wushuang's actions, they could tell that he wasn't an ordinary person. "Master, we've arrived." Tang Wushuang tried his best to pressure his vocal cords, but he was still able to hear the strangeness in Gui Qingren's voice. Gui Qingren raised his head and took a look, then lowered his head back down to read his novel, as if only the words on the phone were able to attract his attention. Tang Wushuang looked around for a bit, and very quickly he discovered Xiao Yi's figure. The vicious aura within his body unconsciously emitted out. "It is precisely because of this bastard that I became a woman. If I don't kill Xiao Yi in this life, I won't be able to vent the hatred in my heart." Gui Qingren looked at the phone and said faintly, "Wushuang, if you were to make a move here today, it would be very hard for you to clean up the mess." Chapter 315. Therefore, anyone who dared to fight here, unless they had great connections or were members of the other 4 great clans, was nothing to be afraid of. Right now, Chinya pulled her little sister over to her side. "I feel that this auction isn't that safe, and I have to be a bit more careful." Song Huang walked to the side of the 2 girls as though he was a flower protector. However, some people felt that this saint doctor was just trying to ride on their popularity. "Master, disciple understands. A little impatience will spoil great plans," Gui Qingren said faintly. Because this line of words just happened to appear in the novel, he just casually said it. Yes. When everyone saw that Tang Wushuang was actually being so respectful, they became even more curious towards this mysterious man who was wearing floral shorts. "Brother Xiao, don't act recklessly. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Shu Nan was also afraid that her husband would act recklessly, so she reminded him softly. Xiao Yi, of course, knew the pros and cons and patted Shu Nan's hand. However, looking at Tang Wushuang who was walking over slowly, Xiao Yi couldn't help but want to directly take out his Xianyuan sword and slash at Tang Wushuang. And when Tang Wushuang saw Xiao Yi, he couldn't wait to let Xiao Yi have a taste of himself, the taste of being a woman. This was life. Brothers of the past would turn against each other and even have to kill each other to eliminate the hatred in their hearts. When Tang Wushuang saw Chinya who was at the side, he went into a slight daze, then greeted, "Xiao Qing." Chinya nodded her head politely. the scene immediately went into an uproar. This Tang Wushuang didn't pay attention to anyone, and he just had to greet that beauty. Xiao Yi was like that, and this Tang Wushuang was also like that. What exactly is going on? Gui Qingren didn't greet them and didn't even look at the two women. Regarding power and women, Gui Qingren preferred novels. Song Huang felt that he was feeling very apologetic. Everyone was greeting Qingya, and yet, they just had to ignore me. Just what is going on today? Uncle, you can't do it. Dong Huangli raised her head and looked towards Song Huang, then said with a childish voice. Children's words were very deadly. Song Huang felt extremely sullen. He had never felt so sullen before. If he had known that things would turn out like this, he wouldn't have brought them along. Qingya said tenderly, Ali, you cannot be impolite. Oh, uncle, you are the best. Dong Huangli responded, then said to Song Huang. Ultimate kill. Being scolded by a child and then given a candy to comfort you, you still had to face it with a smile. How hurtful. The show was not over yet. At this moment, a fleet of 4 Rolls-Royces arrived. The Bai family is here. Yeah, I didn't expect the Bai family to show up for this auction. It's my honor to meet this northern beauty today. What does it have to do with those 2 women and the northern beauty? That's true. The 4 cars slowly stopped. Wang Debao was the first to get out of the car. He opened the car door for his wife like a little brother. Bai Cixin was wearing a white dress, and her pretty face was covered with a veil, as if she did not want others to see her face. If it was in the past, everyone would think that this veil was very mysterious and classy. But now, why do I feel that wearing this veil on my face is so weird? Look at other people, how beautiful are they? Is there anyone like you? You're still wearing a veil? Bai Cixin, who got out of the car, also seemed to feel that something was wrong. This wasn't the case when she appeared in the past. What was going on? A man and a woman got out of a car behind them. The man was Bai Cixin's younger brother, Bai Qi. He was wearing a black suit and had a delicate face. He looked like a pretty boy and was very handsome. The girl who got out of the car attracted everyone's attention. The girl looked to be in her early 20s. She had jet black hair and a snow-white face. Her clear and beautiful eyes were slightly blue, like pure gems. She had a graceful figure and wore a light red dress. She should have been a pure and beautiful girl, but she gave off a sorrowful aura, making people feel pity for her. Someone in the crowd suddenly recognized the girl. I know who this girl is. One of the wives of the family master exclaimed. The family master shouted in a low voice, "Lower your voice. It's embarrassing for you to be so surprised. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have brought you out." The wife responded, but she still said, "Hubby, didn't the Bai family hold a banquet last month? This girl and her mother were there too. What's so strange about that? Actually, this girl is quite pitiful. I think her mother made Bai Qi a concubine." The family master's expression changed. "But is it hard for you to be my concubine?" The woman stopped talking. Only she could understand the girl's thoughts. "What's the girl's name?" The family master asked. "I think she's called Dongfang Yu." Surname Dongfang? Everyone seemed to have thought of the surname Dongfang. 100 years ago, there were 6 big families in the north, and Dongfang family was one of them. However, Dongfang family was reported by other big families, and the content of the report was that Dongfang family was secretly hiding an ancient godly item. At that time, the emperor of Voidless Realm was Donghuang Baiji's father. He personally investigated this matter, and as expected, an ancient godly item was found. After all, there was a rule that one could only possess one ancient godly item. Secretly hiding an ancient godly item was a heavy crime, because it was suspected of rebelling. However, at that time, Dongfang family cried out that they were being framed. However, rules were rules, and there was no evidence to prove their innocence. Thus, Donghuang Baiji's father revoked the title of Dongfang family, executed all the males, and released all the females. Dongfang Yuer's grandmother was the only daughter of the family master at that time. In order to keep the surname Dongfang, all the children followed their mother's surname. Dongfang Yu, Wu was the most outstanding one among the younger generation, and thus, she decided to gift her to Bai family. However, all of this was not what Dong Fangyu wanted. However, what else could she do? On the other hand, Bai Qi only accepted Dong Fangyu because he fancied her appearance. Bai Cixin, on the other hand, didn't mind. It doesn't matter if my little brother takes in a concubine, but the main wife must be beneficial to Bai family. Marrying a virtuous woman was a very simple principle. Bai Qi, who was standing behind his big sister, stretched out his hand, wanting to hug Dong Fangyu's waist. However, Dong Fangyu dodged his hand. This made Bai Qi a little angry. She is already prepared to marry into Bai family, yet you are still acting all high and mighty? Not letting me touch this, not letting me touch that. Do you really think that you are still the Dongfang family of the past? If you were still the Dongfang family, then I, Bai Qi, would have to kneel and lick your boots. However, the current you can only kneel and lick my boots. I have already promised you that I will only make a move on you after you graduate. However, don't force me to be rough. Your family's finances are all in my hands. Bai Qi leaned close to Dong Fangyu and shouted out gravely. This kind of threat was fatal to Dong Fangyu. Upon seeing this, Bai Qi stretched out his hand and hugged onto Dong Fangyu's waist, declaring his ownership. Dong Fangyu was indeed captivating, especially the sense of weakness that was emitted from her bones. It made men feel a strong sense of conquest. Put on a smile, don't be so lifeless. Bai Qi said. Chapter 316. Although everyone at the scene expressed their pity, this was, after all, someone else's Bai family's matter, and they couldn't interfere in it. Wife, that Qinya came as well. Wang Debao said softly. Bai Cixin looked towards the front, and her eyebrows slightly wrinkled. She felt that this Qinya had changed a lot. This Qinya is very beautiful. No wonder everyone had such a reaction when I appeared. In terms of appearance, I am indeed no match for Qinya. Debao, go up and greet her. Bai Cixin said. Logically speaking, Bai Cixin should be feeling jealous. This was the normal rhythm. However, Bai Cixin wasn't an ordinary woman. If not, she wouldn't be able to lead Bai family to this point. It could only be said that Bai Cixin was a very shrewd woman. Although Wang Debao was puzzled, he still listened to his wife's words. That bar owner had always been a mystery, or rather, an enigmatic man. Even his wife had to worry about this point. That's why smart women would do the right thing. Shunan was like this, and Bai Cixin was also like this. This also meant that their sixth sense was correct. There were some people that they really couldn't afford to offend. When everyone saw Bai Cixin walking towards Qinya's direction with her man and little brother, they immediately gasped. Why are all the big shots greeting that woman? Just who is this woman's man? This man didn't even come to the scene, and yet, he is already in the limelight. Qinya didn't recognize Bai Cixin, who was wearing a veil, and she was only a bit curious. People in the cultivation world sure are weird. Mommy Qing, why is this auntie wearing a veil? Is it because she can't see others? Dong Huangli asked curiously. Qinya smiled slightly. Ali, there are many reasons for wearing a veil. You can't just casually guess. Oh, Ali understands. Dong Huangli nodded her head and stopped guessing. If not, she would seem very rude and lose face for her daddy. Bai Cixin could be seen walking in front of Qinya and said gently, I have long heard of Xiao Qing's great name. Seeing you today, you are indeed very beautiful. After finished speaking, Bai Cixin stretched out her hand. Qinya felt a bit awkward. She knows me, but I don't know her. What should I say? If Bai Cixin wasn't wearing a veil, Qinya might be able to recognize her. After all, Bai Cixin was also a philanthropist, and Qinya had met her once when she attended the banquet. Song Huang said softly, So Qing, this is Bai Cixin from Bai family. However, after Song Huang finished speaking, he went into a daze for a moment. Why did I call him Xiao Qing as well? His mind was in a mess. He was a saint doctor. Don't forget his identity. Only then did Qinya remember about it, and with a slight smile, she said, Xiao Bai is being too polite, I don't dare to accept it. As he spoke, he prepared to shake hands with Bai Cixin. Ah, Mommy Ching, don't, Daddy will be angry, little Ali cried out in alarm. Qin Ya's body stiffened. Luckily, my fingers did not touch the other party, and Qin Yutong, who was at the side, was currently taking pictures of the evidence. What a traitor! However, upon thinking of that Vinegar King, Qin Ya smiled helplessly and said, "Oh bye, I'm really sorry, my husband doesn't like me touching other people, sorry for my rudeness." Bai Cixin chuckled. President Qing is so beautiful. If I were a man, I would do the same. As expected of the Bai family's patriarch. He could even resolve such an awkward atmosphere. Everyone was impressed. But at the same time, he felt that it was inconceivable. Because the child said that Papa would be angry. How could such a beautiful woman be angry? This was simply intolerable. Could it be domestic violence? Call the police. Let the beautiful woman be released. Wang Debao was also impressed by his wife. Under such a situation, she was still able to welcome people with a smile. If it was me, I might not be able to hold back from ridiculing her. However, Bai Qi, who was at the back, felt that his sister was being too cautious. This was a great disrespect towards Bai family. Even if Bai Qi was beautiful, he still couldn't tolerate it. Of course, Bai Cixin had her own thoughts. Since her beauty was inferior to the other parties, she had to win in another aspect. However, her magnanimity won everyone's praise, but the other party was different. It would be very rude. However, using Yi Hua's words, there was no need for my woman to be polite towards a group of salted fishes. After hearing what Yi Hua said, Qin Ya smiled sweetly. Immediately, all of the men became distracted. This smile was too beautiful, it was suffocating. My husband is a Vinegar King, he wishes that I could be chained to his side 24/7. Qin Ya's smile looked very blissful. Everyone was able to feel that, to have a woman like this, how many people did you have to help to cross the road in your previous life? Qin Yutong laughed. Big sister actually became a crazy demon showing off her husband. Incredible, I am also going to become a crazy demon showing off my brother-in-law. That's because Daddy loves Mommy Qing, Dong Huangli said. Here comes another crazy demon showing off her father. This family is incredible. Qin Ya pinched onto Dong Huangli's little nose. Daddy loves you too. Of course. This was a big family showing off their affection, and all of the single dogs that were present were unable to take it anymore. Dong Fongyuan, who was standing beside Bai Qi, looked at Qin Ya blankly. In her heart, she was very envious of this woman. Song Huang, who was standing at the side, was very depressed. Thinking back then, when I appeared, how many people would come over to greet me and fawn over me? This year, everything has completely changed. I have truly shot myself in the foot, the gains do not make up for the losses. Xiao Xiao, long time no see. Bai Cixin shouted out toward Xiao Yi, but she didn't have any intention of stretching out her hand to greet Xiao Yi. Xiao Bai, long time no see. Xiao Yi replied politely. Right now, Xiao Yi no longer had any thoughts towards Bai family. After all, the black gown had already given the order that he wouldn't participate in the aristocratic family selection. Since that was the case, he didn't have any thoughts of going against Bai family. Qin Ya noticed Dong Fongyuan, who was standing beside Bai Qi, and was very curious. This woman who was standing weakly at the side seemed very out of place. From Qin Ya's point of view, this kind of girl actually shouldn't appear here. After all, this was a place where people would eat people up without spitting out their bones. This is... Qin Ya asked curiously. Wang Debao smiled and said, this is my brother-in-law's girlfriend. Dong Fongyuan, seemed to be very afraid. Her delicate hands tightly grabbed onto her small handbag and didn't dare to look straight at Qin Ya's gaze. She lowered her head and her delicate body was slightly trembling. Su Qing, sorry, this girl hasn't seen much of the world, I have let you see a joke. Wang Debao said apologetically while sighing in his heart. This brother-in-law of mine really wants to bring someone else out today, I am really speechless. Qin Ya didn't mind and comforted Dong Fongyuan. It's all right, I am still studying at this age. CEO Qin, she is indeed studying at university right now. After she graduates, she will marry into my Bai family. Wang Debao followed his wife's wishes and got familiar with Qingya. Oh, which university is she studying at? Qingya asked. Bai Qi pulled onto Dongfang Yuan, who was beside him, and said in a low voice, Xiao Qing is asking you a question, don't be a mute. Hearing what Bai Qi said, Qingya couldn't help but slightly frown, but she didn't say anything. Xiao Qing, I am studying at Zijin University. Dongfang Yuan lowered her head and said while trembling with fear, just like a frightened rabbit. Right now, Bai Qi also regretted bringing her out. She didn't even give me any face at all, every single sentence she says is filled with death, and she even lowered her head. Doesn't she know that this is very rude? If not for there being a lot of people here, I would have given her a slap. Chapter 317. Senior sister? Dongfang Yuer slowly raised her head. This word sounds very approachable, which allowed Dongfang Yuer to find a trace of warmth in this unfamiliar place. Hello, senior sister. Hello, junior sister. Dongfang Yuer finally revealed out a trace of a smile. This kind of gathering still has a trace of warmth. This big sister is a good person. Although it was just a small conversation in everyone's hearts, they didn't think so. It was as if Dongfang Yuer had found a huge backer. After all, everyone present was a smart person. For this beauty to say such words, there definitely must be some other meaning behind it. It seemed like she was telling Bai family to treat this girl a bit better. Indeed, Qingya saw that Bai Qi didn't treat this girl well. Perhaps it was out of pity for this girl. Qingya said a few more words to help this helpless junior martial sister. After all, marrying into a rich and powerful family was as deep as the sea. Bai Cixin also understood what Qingya meant, and said to her brother, Bai Qi, treat Yuer well in the future, understand? I understand, big sister. Bai Qi lowered his head and replied. Seeing that her goal was achieved, Qingya smiled and said to Bai Cixin, to have such a delicate girlfriend, your brother is so fortunate. Xiao Qing is right as the big sister, I am also very happy. Bai Cixin smiled and said. Although she expressed sympathy, Qingya didn't have the intention to interfere, she only said a few words. However, to Dongfang Yuer, those few words were already enough, and she silently thanked this senior sister in her heart. Su Qing, it's getting late, let's go in. Wang Debao felt that it was about time. Tonight's big show is inside, and not outside. Qingya nodded her head, then walked on the stone bridge while holding Donghuang Li's hand. Qing Yutong will temporarily stop filming here, she will continue filming after they go in. This is so interesting, even brother-in-law missed the show. Song Huang, who was supposed to bring Qing family sisters here, was actually following behind the two sisters. Don't blame me for not giving you face then. After passing through the stone bridge, everyone arrived at Yuan Linglong's main hall. The auction was about to begin, a lot of people were still waiting in the main hall. Various family heads were chatting with each other, and there were all kinds of beauties surrounding them. To put it bluntly, in this kind of banquet, there were basically no ordinary beauties, all of them were first-class beauties. After all, they were the family heads' women. However, when Qingya and the others walked in, all the men in the main hall stopped chatting and looked at Qing Yutong and Qing Yutong, ignoring Bai Cixin. These two women are really indescribably beautiful. However, the people in the main hall did not know what had just happened outside. If they saw it, they would be even more amazed. At this moment, Chen Xuanzong was among them as well. He was currently building up a good relationship with the family heads. After all, rather than having one more enemy, it was better to have one less. His first glance wasn't on Qingya, but on Xiao Yi, the man who exterminated his entire family. As a devil emperor, Chen Xuanzong really wanted to charge over and slay Xiao Yi on the spot. However, his rationality still prevailed. He couldn't do that right now. By Chen Chen, he of Yu, who of Chen Chen became Petrid. When he became Chen Yu of Chen. Of heart of Qing Yi, became more Yu's beauty, of Fang Yu of Qingya. Since time has returned, Chen Xuanzong will never abandon you again. Li of Qing, Fang Li muttered. Mother of Dong. Dong Huang Li mumbled. In actuality, her eyes were already staring at the dessert at the side, and her saliva was about to flow out. Qinya rubbed onto Dong Huangli's stomach. "You ate so much tonight, you are still hungry?" Ali's body is still growing, Dong Huangli said pitifully. Qinya had no choice but to bring Dong Huangli to eat, then said to everyone, "Everyone, I will bring my child to eat something." Everyone nodded their heads politely, then began to win over the hearts of the people, especially Xiao Yi. A huge change happened to the family, and it was time to greet those people who left the family. Right now, Song Huang was also surrounded by a group of people who were calling him Sage Doctor. He finally found his sense of belonging. Otherwise, if he were to stand together with those two women, his limelight would be snatched away. However, if he were to chase after Qin Yutong right now, he wouldn't be able to put down his face. The two sisters came to the side of the dessert. Qin Yutong casually picked up a piece of cake and ate it with Dong Huangli. From time to time, Qin Yutong would tease little Ali, making Dong Huangli pout. "Qinya!" A warm voice rang out. Qinya went into a daze for a moment, then slowly turned around. A tall and handsome man could be seen in front of Qinya, who had a gentle smile on his face. Qin Yutong and Dong Huangli looked towards the man who suddenly appeared. "You are?" Qinya asked confusedly. Chen Xuanzong said with a smile, "Qinya, don't you remember me?" Qinya didn't have a good impression of this kind of man. She said faintly, "Why should I remember you?" Chen Xuanzong felt that this kind of opening was very awkward. However, thinking about it, back then I was still a fatty, it's normal for me to not remember. In actuality, there were a lot of family heads who wanted to go up and strike up a conversation with Qinya, but Qinya's aura was very strong, and coupled with that mysterious husband of hers, they stopped. However, now that there was a man who was testing the lightning, everyone was still paying attention to him. Qin Yutong still doesn't know about these men? If brother-in-law were to find out about this, wouldn't he break all 4 of these men's limbs? "Hey, are you trying to woo my big sister?" Qin Yutong said in a joking manner. "As the sister-in-law of brother-in-law, I have to look after my big sister well. Of course, when I want to stir up trouble, I still have to stir up trouble. If not, how can my boring life be interesting?" Chen Xuanzong looked towards Qin Yutong and was unable to recognize her. After all, Qin Yutong's appearance was off the charts, but her temper was still the same. "Mommy Qin, this uncle looks like a bad person, let's ignore him." Dong Huangli pulled onto the corner of Qinya's clothes, and her face was very vigilant. She couldn't wait to call her daddy over right now to beat up this bad person. What Dong Huangli said was right, Chen Xuanzong wasn't a good person. After all, he was a demon emperor, and his hands were stained with blood. However, right now, Chen Xuanzong was very depressed. "I haven't even acknowledged him yet, and I am already labeled as a bad person." Qinya carried Dong Huangli into her embrace and said coldly, "Please leave, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite." But Chen Xuanzong didn't know what to say. I remember that in the past, although Qinya was cold and indifferent, she was still gentle. However, right now, she doesn't seem to be like the Qinya in the past. But just now, this child called me mommy. This is impossible. Chapter 318. Long Outyin must have wanted to do something improper to them and forced them to commit suicide. At that moment, Long Outyin, who was sleeping in his cave, sneezed. If he knew that someone had wronged him, he would definitely seek justice for himself. I didn't even manage to touch a single toe before I was snatched away by that pretentious guy. "Qinya, she is your child?" Grief appeared on Chen Xuanzong's face. "This is impossible. How could Qinya be with Long Outyin? This is impossible." Qinya was very disgusted with the man in front of her. "What does it have to do with you whether I am your child or not?" I am Mommy Qing's child. If you dare to bully my Mommy Qing, I will call Daddy over and beat you up." After speaking, Dong Huangli even waved her small fist. Chen Xuanzong frowned. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Seeing that Chen Xuanzong still didn't show any signs of leaving, Qin Yutong snorted and said, "Brat, why aren't you leaving yet?" You don't know anything about my brother-in-law. If he were to find out about this, you're done for. Chinya also persuaded coldly, Mister, I'm warning you for the last time, it's best for you to stay away from me, I don't want my husband to get angry. Chen Xuanzong's face was filled with astonishment, and he couldn't help but take a small step back. Why did things turn out like this? Chinya is actually protecting Long Outyin like this. That Long Outyin isn't a good person. He's a womanizer, doesn't attend to his proper duties, and is always on the gossip news. This is definitely a facade, and Chinya said it on purpose. That's right, after all, Chinya is a kind-hearted person. Co Qing, is there anything I can help you with? At this moment, Xiao Yi slowly walked over and said respectfully. Looking at Xiao Yi who was just inches away from him, Chen Xuanzong's body trembled slightly. He nearly couldn't help but make his move. No need, Xiao Xiao. Chinya said faintly. Xiao Yi glanced at Chen Xuanzong. It was a look of warning. Then he left with Shu Nan. It was Shu Nan who suggested coming over. Chen Xuanzong, what are you doing? Suddenly, a man called out to Chen Xuanzong. Chinya went into a daze for a moment. After recalling what her mother had told her, she asked in confusion, You are Chen Xuanzong? Fatty Chen? Qin Yutong thought to herself that the situation was bad. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth, looking just like an unhappy baby. Looking at Qin Ya's pleasantly surprised expression, Chen Xuanzong's disappointment disappeared. He knew that this was just a facade. It's me, the fatty from back then. As he spoke, Chen Xuanzong stretched his cheeks wide to prove that he was a fatty in the past. Qin Ya was also rather surprised. Fatty, I didn't expect to see you here. It has been almost 10 years since we last met, you have lost a lot of weight, and you have also become more handsome. You flatter me. In the past, I was just fat. Chen Xuanzong said embarrassedly. He was in a great mood. Yutong, what's wrong? Do you really not recognize me anymore? Chen Xuanzong smiled at Qin Yutong. Qin Yutong pouted her mouth. Disappeared for so many years, where did you go to fool around? First, I have to ruin this person's impression in my sister's heart. Then, my sister won't remember our old relationship. In actuality, Qin Yutong was thinking too much. Right now, Qin Ya was only having the attitude of an old friend and would not betray Yihua. In Qin Ya's heart, Yihua had long been irreplaceable, no matter what happens. My family underwent a huge change. Back then, I didn't even have the time to greet them before I left. I've been abroad for the past few years. I've only returned recently. Chen Xuanzong explained. Qin Ya silently thought back to that year. It was fortunate that you went overseas, if not, I definitely wouldn't have been able to see Yihua. If Chen Xuanzong knew what Qin Ya was thinking, would he feel despair? How have you been recently? Chen Xuanzong asked with a gentle voice. That warm greeting was something that everyone could understand. Without waiting for Qin Ya to reply, Dong Huangli snorted, My daddy and mommy are very good. If you still don't leave, Ali will get angry, and if Ali gets angry, the consequences will be very serious. Ali is serious. Qin Ya knew that her child was speaking up for her father, thus she said tenderly, Ali, this is mommy's old friend, don't be angry. Ali doesn't like it, woo. Dong Huangli hugged onto Qin Ya and acted coquettishly. Qin Yutong, who was behind Dong Huangli, gave Ali a thumbs up, and little Ali blinked her big eyes. The two of them cooperated very well. Chen Xuanzong wanted to confirm this matter and asked gravely, Qin Ya, is she really your child? Qin Ya liked Dong Huangli very much, and even more so, Qin Ya treated Dong Huangli as her own daughter. Yes. Looking at Qin Ya's blissful smile, Chen Xuanzong felt as if he was struck by lightning. How could Qin Ya and Long Outyin live together happily? They even had a child. Qin Yutong even spoke up for Long Outyin. After a long while, Chen Xuanzong said, Qin Ya, is he good to you? Dong Huangli began answering, Of course daddy is good to mommy, after all, there is a baby in mommy's stomach. The second child. She even gave birth to a second child. As a demon emperor, Chen Xuanzong felt a bit despair. Mommy said before, after I give birth to a little brother, I want to give daddy another baby. Dong Huangli added, causing Qin Ya to feel a bit embarrassed. give birth to another baby. This sentence was like a thunder exploding within Chen Xuanzong's mind. This Long Outyin definitely threatened Qinya. If not, Qinya wouldn't be acting like this. Qinya, he is a swindler. Chen Xuanzong advised. Don't be fooled by Long Outyin's sweet words. Qinya wrinkled her brows. If not for the fact that they were old friends, she would have already flipped out. Qinya said faintly, Fatty, he is my husband. Even if he lied to me, I am willing to do so. But, Fatty, don't say any more, otherwise we can't even be friends anymore. Qinya shouted out coldly. This had already touched Qinya's bottom line. Qin Yutong, who was at the side, secretly took a photo and sent her big sister's attitude to brother-in-law. This way, brother-in-law shouldn't be worried anymore. Qinya, do you like him that much? Actually, Dong Huangli couldn't take it anymore and said, Uncle, don't think that Ali's temper is good, my mommy only loves daddy. Originally, Qinya still wanted to reminisce about the past with her old friend, but when she discovered that Chen Xuanzong wasn't the fatty from back then, she didn't have the mood to continue chatting. Ali, let's go over there and eat French fries, okay? Dong Huangli agreed happily. But Ali, you have to eat less, if not, you will have a stomachache. Qinya revealed a gentle smile, causing Dong Huangli to kiss Qinya. Mommy is beautiful, Mommy Qing is also beautiful, Ali feels that she is too blessed. While carrying Dong Huangli, Qinya walked to the other side. Everyone at the scene couldn't help but open up a path for Qinya. Perhaps, even they themselves didn't know why they had to open up a path, but they felt that they had to open up a path. This point alone was sufficient to prove that Qinya's aura was becoming stronger and stronger. Qin Yutong patted onto Chen Xuanzong's shoulder, then said earnestly, Fatty, some things are already in the past, you don't have to keep it in your heart anymore. But I can't let it go. Chen Xuanzong said with red eyes. Qin Yutong persuaded Chen Xuanzong one last time, right now, you are already half a step into the abyss, it is still not too late for you to go back. If not, you will definitely die without an intact corpse. I am not joking with you, my brother-in-law's strength is something that you will never be able to imagine. After finished speaking, Qin Yutong turned around and followed after her big sister's footsteps. Chapter 319. Looking at Dong Huangli who was eating fries, Qinya said tenderly, Ali, you can't eat too much. And Ali understands. Qin Yutong said quietly to her big sister, it seems like this Chen Xuanzong is preparing to pursue you. Alright, don't say any more, if your brother-in-law were to find out, he would definitely get mad. Qinya knew Yihua's personality very well. Although this Chen Xuanzong was disrespectful towards her, they were still friends. Even if she didn't give him face, she still had to give him face. But I have already sent it over. Qin Yutong said pitifully as she waved her phone. Dong Huangli said exaggerately, Daddy is going to get mad. Qinya pinched onto her little sister's ear, you traitor. Big sister, be gentle, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Just as they were fooling around, two people walked in from the entrance. One was a robust middle-aged man, and the other was a man with a graceful bearing. The middle-aged man had a square face and sideburns. There was a scar on his cheek that looked very sinister, like a wriggling centipede. It was precisely because of this appearance that people naturally feared him. The man at the side was much more delicate and handsome. He was waving a folding fan in his hand and dressed up like an ancient romantic scholar, attracting the attention of the unmarried women present. When everyone saw these two people, they went into a daze for a moment. Some people didn't recognize them, but some people recognized them. Those who recognized them cupped their hands and shouted, Chu family head. At this moment, some people started discussing. Hey, is there a need to be so respectful towards a family head? Lower your voice. This is one of the 5 aristocratic families, Chu family. The Chu family. Everyone hurriedly cupped their hands and greeted respectfully. Even Xiao Yi and Bai Zixin cupped their hands and greeted respectfully. After all, this was etiquette. Of course, there were still some people who didn't do it. For example, Gui Qingren was sitting at the side eating sunflower seeds and reading novels. Qin Yutong was even more so. What does an aristocratic family count as? Even big shots have to follow brother-in-law's orders. Bai Qi bowed his body and took a look at Dongfang Yuan, who was at the side, then shouted out, Dongfang Yuan, do you still want me to teach you how to bend your waist? In actuality, Dongfang Yuan, had already learned from others, but Bai Qi was just nitpicking and intentionally making things difficult for Dongfang Yuan. Bai Qi just wanted to vent his anger, who asked her to make him lose face just now. As the two of them walked over, all the clan leaders tried to curry favor with them. It wasn't easy for an aristocratic family to appear here, so they had to have a good chat with them. Father, I'll go eat something. As Chu He's eldest son, Chu Bai enjoyed a halo that others couldn't obtain. Did Chu He not know his son's intentions? Since he was here today to hunt for beauties, he just let him be. Perhaps others didn't know, but Chu Bai had a fetish. Others liked virgins, but he liked married women. Other than the main wife, all the concubines were like this. However, Chu Bai didn't snatch it by force. Instead, he stepped in and slowly obtained it. He enjoyed that thrill very much. You don't understand the world of powerful people. They seek excitement. Chu Bai waved his fan and walked around the hall, sweeping his gaze across the group of women. He didn't care about the average ones anymore. Recently, he had been infatuated with the high and mighty women, and conquering them gave him a sense of accomplishment. As for those little girls, he was really not interested. How could he be as interesting as someone else's wife? Pervert. Mommy Qing, Ali can't eat anymore. Dong Huangli rubbed onto her plump belly and said pitifully. She seemed to be a bit unwilling to not finish eating all of these. Qingya took out a napkin and carefully wiped Dong Huangli's mouth. If you can't eat anymore, then don't eat anymore. But Ali recently learned a poem. Dong Huangli began to show off. Qingya and Qin Yutong were very curious as well. What poem? Hoeing rice at noon. Dong Huangli said. What was the next sentence? I forgot. This is so embarrassing. Ali has lost face for daddy. I originally wanted to flaunt my culture a bit. Seeing how Ali was stuttering, Qingya and Qin Yutong couldn't help but laugh. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth. Next time, I will come and show off after I finish reciting the poem. Sweat drips into the soil. Who would know that every grain of rice on the plate is bitter? Chu Bai could be seen lightly waving his fan and speaking leisurely. That confident smile of his seemed to be saying that what I said was correct, right? Dong Huangli became unhappy. I was supposed to show off to you. Uncle is so amazing, you actually know how to recite children's poems. Dong Huangli shouted out. She wanted to let everyone know that this uncle of hers was reciting children's songs at home. Chu Bai paused for a moment. What a sharp little kid, so eloquent. However, my target is not you, but the two women beside you. In order to prove that he was talented, Chu Bai coughed lightly and said in a low voice, others laugh at me for being too crazy. Dong Huangli was very unhappy. Since you are destroying Ali's stage, Ali is going to destroy your stage. Dong Huangli could be heard saying with a childish voice, I'm laughing at him for saying that he is right. Chu Bai almost choked on his own saliva. Qingya and Qin Yutong laughed so much that they were about to cramp up. When did Ali become so mischievous? Didn't he learn it from his father? Everyone in the surroundings heard what Dong Huangli said. Originally, I thought that Dong Huangli is just a bronze king, but it turns out that Dong Huangli is actually a king. However, he didn't dare to laugh out loud. After all, he was the son of an aristocratic family. However, he still couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh lightly. Chu Bai felt very awkward, but he still had to maintain his poise. He could not lose face in front of a beauty, or else this first impression would be gone. However, if he wanted to woo these two women, he had to start with the children. Little friend, you are very awesome. Chu Bai smiled and praised. Dong Huangli snorted, of course, Ali is very formidable. Ali, do you want to play with Uncle again? Don't think that Chu Bai was really playing with the children. This was a form of interaction. He wanted the two beauties to lower their guard so that he could take advantage of the situation. Dong Huangli was Yi Hua's child. When had she ever been a coward? All right, Ali will let uncle start the conversation. Dong Huangli braced herself and said. Even if Qingye wanted to persuade the child, it was already too late. Qingye could only watch the child perform. Qing Yutong immediately captured the moment when Ali was acting cool. The crowd was attracted over as well. A battle between a junior king and a descendant of an aristocratic family. This was going to be interesting. Chu Bai thought for a moment. He couldn't make it too difficult, or others would think that he was bullying a child. Whoosh. Chu Bai opened his folding fan and said in a graceful manner, "Everyone has died since ancient times." Everyone was in an uproar. This was too difficult for children. The moonlight in front of the bed was more or less the same. Qingye also felt that this was a difficult situation. Dong Huangli was very puzzled. Since ancient times, who doesn't have sh*t? How could there be such a poem? How strange. However, if I am unable to continue the conversation, while losing face for Ali is a small matter, losing face for my daddy is a big matter. When everyone saw that Ali was frowning and seemed to be thinking, they couldn't help but become worried. This Chu Bai is too shameless, he is still acting so complacent over there. Dong Huangli's big eyes could be seen shining as she stood on the chair and shouted out, "Thou shalt not use paper when shitting." At this moment, everyone became quiet as they looked dumbfoundedly at the little fellow who was standing on the chair. The little fellow had heard the word *t, and then improvised a line. It was right and it rhymed. Chapter 320. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Qingye and Qing Yutong also didn't expect that Ali would actually be able to say such a sentence, and after being dumbfounded for a moment, they couldn't help but laugh tenderly. It was clear that Ali didn't know, but she still answered based on what she knew. Moreover, she even scolded Zhao Fu. It seemed that Ali was quite vengeful. Chu Bai felt as if he had eaten *t. He had actually been looked down upon by a little kid. Although his answer was wrong, it was still another kind of sublimation. He had to say it, and he had to say it in another way. Little fellow, this young master's talent is not something you can understand. Looking at the strange look on Chu Bai's face, the crowd could not help but sigh as they felt that the son of an aristocratic family had not given up and was going to continue fighting with a kid. If he won, he would be bullying the weak. If he lost, he wouldn't even be able to win against a child. He wouldn't be able to please either side and would be digging his own grave. Right now, Chu Bai was already in a difficult position unless Dong Huangli took the initiative to step aside. However, that was impossible. After a while, Chu Bai's eyes lit up. He waved his folding fan and slowly said, "If you don't have toilet paper." Damn. This son of an aristocratic family really dared to come. Everyone couldn't help but look at the little fellow. If it was a match, it would definitely be the highlight of today's auction. The little fellow had used a poem to slap the son of an aristocratic family. It was too interesting. Dong Huangli raised her head and looked towards Mama Qing and Aunt Qing. Qingye and Qing Yutong had a helpless look on their faces. It wasn't that Mommy Qing didn't want to help Ali, it was that Mommy Qing didn't know how to answer Ali's question. Seeing that even Dong Huangli had asked for help, everyone felt that even though they were defeated, it was still an honor. As for Chu Bai, he was a little smug. How was it possible for a little brat to defeat him? From the looks of it, Dong Huangli had indeed angered Chu Bai, causing Chu Bai to forget about his original mission. His mission wasn't to spar with a child but rather, to strike up a conversation with a beauty. Dong Huangli pouted her mouth and looked at Chu Bai unwillingly. "Calm down, don't be reckless, Ali will definitely think of something." After a while, everyone felt that Ali couldn't match it, so Xiao Xiao didn't say anything. "Little guy, what else can you say?" Chu Bai smiled. Qingye and Qing Yutong inwardly scolded him for being shameless. Bullying little children, Ali quickly beat him up. Dong Huangli could be seen snorting coldly, then said, "If that's the case, Ali, you will have to use your fingers." At this moment, the air froze. If you don't have toilet paper, you can only use your fingers. Ha! The whole audience immediately burst into laughter. This little guy was amazing, too amazing. They matched each other neatly, rhyming perfectly, and the ending notes connected pleasantly. Hi, little prodigy. She even reached the point of scolding people without using dirty words. Qin Yutong, who was filming the video for Ali, was a bit stupefied, and Qinya was even more so. This little fellow is truly becoming more and more fond of Ali. Qinya and Qin Yutong could be seen giving Ali a sweet and fragrant kiss, causing everyone to feel extremely envious, and they all wished that they could become little fellows. Dong Huangli even raised up her chin. Quickly come and praise Ali, Ali will accept your praise. However, Chu Bai put away his folding fan. He was so angry that his lips were trembling. He couldn't tolerate it. He had been sliced by a little kid. He had to think of a way to regain his face. Use his status to pressure me? Too low level? He still had to use culture to crush the other party and let the children know that he, the son of an aristocratic family, was not to be trifled with. Little friend, you're amazing. Why don't we try something a little more difficult? When Chu Bai said this, everyone felt that he was shameless. He wanted to increase the difficulty. The previous one was already difficult enough, but the little fellow had thought for so long. Qin Ya's expression sunk. I will let Ali play with Ali, but if others bully Ali like this, I, as his mother, will not allow it. Qin Yutong is the same as well. If you want to bully my Ali, you have to ask me, Aunt Qing. System, give me a big sword. As the child of a supreme overlord, Dong Huangli's bloodline carried the gene of never admitting defeat. Towards other people's challenges, Dong Huangli would not cower and would only bravely advance forward. Mommy Qing, Aunt Qing, let Ali do it. Dong Huangli put on the appearance of a little adult, which made people feel that Dong Huangli was very cute. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong took a look at each other. After thinking for a bit, they decided to let Ali give it a try. Who knows, Ali might even be able to give them a pleasant surprise. If this man dares to take a yard after taking an inch, Qinya will definitely not let him off. Dong Huangli could be seen saying to Chu Bai, Uncle, this kind of competition is too dull. Do you want to give it a little something? Something? Qinya and Qin Yutong went into a daze. When did Ali learn such words? Needless to say, it must be her father who taught her. Qinya decided that this time, when she goes back, she will have a good talk with Yihua. You don't have to interfere with the education of Ali anymore. Look at what you have taught Ali to become, to actually dare to make a bet with other people. Ali is only 3 years old. When he grows up, wouldn't he be gambling with other people? The surrounding people were clearly stunned by Dong Huangli's attitude. This little fellow is awesome. This was the first time he had seen a child angrily rebuking the son of an aristocratic family. Chu Bai was very confident. With a swoosh, he opened his folding fan again. Ali, whatever you want to bet, Uncle will bet with you. All right, if Uncle loses, you have to recognize Ali as your big brother. Ali will teach you how to comb your hair in the middle. Puff, everyone present burst into laughter. If you recognize me as your big brother, I'll teach you how to comb your hair in the middle. This kid also watches TikTok? Qinya let out a sigh. After this incident, I will definitely uninstall all of my TikTok from my phone. I can't let Ali watch TikTok anymore. However, this time, Qinya had wrongly blamed TikTok. Ali had learned TikTok from Lai Gu. Alright, if Ali loses, you have to be my little brother. Chu Bai wasn't greedy. It didn't matter if he accepted a child as his underling. The important thing was that he would be able to come into contact with two great beauties. Alright, it's a deal, pinky promise. Dong Huangli stretched out her pinky. Chu Bai really walked over and hooked it. He even stamped it. Chu Bai, what are you doing? He suddenly walked out from the crowd. Beside him was actually the Yi family's patriarch, Yi Shao. He had just walked over to discuss some matters with Yi Shao, but when he came out, he saw everyone crowding over here. Sure enough, it was his son again. Chu Bai looked at his father without a hint of fear. Father, you don't have to worry about this. What's there that I don't need to care about? He was confused. A family head beside him recounted the situation. He felt embarrassed when he heard that. His eldest son liked to make himself look like a scholar. Apart from that hobby, he always claimed to be a cultured person and was different from them. You don't even have half a cart full of knowledge with the amount of knowledge in your stomach. Do you think I don't know? The main target is even a little kid, and if I lose, I still have to recognize the little kid as my big brother. You may be shameless, but your father is. Old Chu, this little boy is just playing around. Yi Xiao said with a smile. Play? If that's the case, you are looking down on Dong Huangli too much. Uncle, if your son loses, he wants to recognize me as his big brother. Are you okay with that? If Dong Huangli doesn't even have this bit of foresight, then she would be letting down the power of her bloodline. When Dong Huangli said that, everyone froze. That's the boss of an aristocratic family. A person who can decide a person's life and death with just a single sentence. Chapter 321. I didn't expect that Ali would have such a talent. From the looks of it, in the future, the three of us can form a team and go out to do big things. As an aristocratic family, if we make things difficult for a child in this kind of situation, we will lose a lot of face. Little friend, that uncle is just joking with you, don't take it seriously. Chu he squeezed out a trace of a smile. Bastard son, coming to trouble me at this time. I took it seriously. Dong Huangli said while pouting her mouth. I took it seriously too. Chu Bai responded. I am a talented young master, how can I possibly lose? Yi Xiao laughed lightly. Old Chu, your son's bearing is extraordinary. Chu he wished that he could beat this fellow to death. If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have brought him out today. Chu Bai, you're on your own. After finished speaking, Chu he left angrily. Yi Xiao took a look at Qinya, then turned around and left. Not every man likes beautiful women, perhaps. They just admire beautiful women? Seeing that his father had left, Chu Bai laughed lightly. All right, no one can disturb us now. Uncle, your father is angry, can you make the decision? Dong Huangli asked curiously. This question of yours is so awkward. Chu Bai knocked on his chest with his folding fan, then said with his mouth slightly raised, Uncle's life is my own decision. Then, Ali can be at ease. Everyone became speechless. Why do we have a strange feeling? This little fellow has already dug a pit, and the son of an aristocratic family is currently digging a pit. These people guessed correctly, Dong Huangli has indeed dug a pit. As the representative of the buried love family, Dong Huangli has already started taking in subordinates. And when Yi Hua was Ali's age, who knows where he was playing with mud? The student has surpassed the master. Using Dong Huangli's words, Daddy has so many subordinates, Ali has to make preparations as well. Dong Huangli could be seen smiling confidently. This smile made Chu Bai feel quite pressured. Where does this little brat's confidence come from? Dong Huangli is not fighting alone. Because there is a think tank behind her. Dong Huangli shouted out silently in her heart, Uncle Wei, are you ready? Ali is about to compete. If I lose, I will have to become someone else's subordinate. Far away, in a rented house in Long and City, Wei Chang received a message from Little Honorable, Uncle Wei is ready. The small living room was filled with people. Lai Gu brought along Yi Ran, Wen Xia, and by Xiaozhen, a family of 4. Absolute heaven had rushed over from Zijin University. There was also Death Mage and Sun Fong. The Green and Red brothers died, and of course, Zi Shan also died. Of course, there was also Wei Chang and Tang Wei, only Yi Zizi wasn't present. The pitiful Yi Zizi didn't have anyone to play with her anymore. All of these people were helping Dong Huangli to answer the question. Thus, Chu Bai didn't know what kind of group he was facing at all. In actuality, Dong Huangli was the one who said the first sentence. However, from the moment when she said that everyone would die, it wasn't the one who said it. This matter was too difficult for Dong Huangli, who was not even 3 years old yet. At that time, Dong Huangli was also very anxious, and she was not allowed to ask for help at the scene. Thus, Dong Huangli, who was very anxious, started asking for help in her heart, hoping that the heavens would take pity on Dong Huangli and quickly let Dong Huangli think of something. Although the heavens didn't appear, Wei Chang was able to sense Donghuang Li's cry for help. This was also one of Wei Chang's little thoughts. He was worried that Little Honorable would get hurt, so he specially created a secret technique. As long as Little Honorable asks for help in her heart, he would be able to receive it and immediately go and rescue her. Don't look at how young my daughter is. If she were to really get into a fight, that bunch of deviant flames of hers would be able to make the enemy blush with shame. Wei Chang, who was just about to sleep, sensed it and hurriedly asked about the situation. Immediately, he let out a breath of relief. However, the question that came next caused Wei Chang to have a headache. If it was an ordinary poem, Tang Wei, who was a university student beside him, would definitely know about it. However, Little Honorable's request was not ordinary, and this caused Tang Wei to be stumped. Wei Chang had no choice but to immediately gather everyone. Furthermore, it could be described as extremely urgent. At this time, everyone was more or less preparing to sleep. Even Death Mage was wearing a nightgown. Lai Gu and Absolute Heaven were also wearing a nightcap, as expected of the saying, strength comes from having more people. The first person was Lai Gu's wife, Yi Ran, and the second person was the previous Cloud Sect master, Sun Fong. This was also the reason why Donghuang Li had to think for a very long time when she was answering the question, because she was waiting for the answer. Right now, everyone's brows were tightly wrinkled as they prepared to answer the next question. The foolish Chu Bai still didn't know that the little fellow on the other side was secretly cheating, and that there was even a world-destroying team helping him from behind. Don't look down on Donghuang Li, you will never know just how powerful the little fellow's background is. Chu Bai's brows were solemn. This time, I won't go easy on Donghuang Li. Opening up his folding fan, Chu Bai said with a smile, what is there to be happy when we part? Everyone was shouting out that Donghuang Li was shameless. I can't even follow up with this kind of poem, and I still have to count on a little kid? Chu He, who was standing not far away, shook his head. This is truly throwing away Chu family's face, to actually be so serious towards a little kid. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong had unhappy expressions on their faces as well. This is what a scumbag is. Donghuang Li muttered to herself, seemingly to be pondering, but in actuality, she was telling Wei Chang the question. After receiving Little Honorable's question, Wei Chang stood up and shouted out towards everyone, what is there to be happy when we part? Next sentence. It has to be different from the rest. Lai Gu rubbed onto his temples with both of his hands, feeling that his IQ was not online. Zhu Tian had a calm expression on his face, but his eyes were filled with confusion. Recently, Zhu Tian had started working at Zijin University as a hypnosis professor. Meanwhile, Zhu Tian himself was also studying some culture, and recently he had been memorizing 300 nursery rhymes. He had yet to come into contact with such a profound poem. Green and Red Brothers? Spring Sleep without knowing Dawn is still able to do it twice, but the rest of its IQ is not enough. Death Mage? It is still able to do some fishing and gambling. A large group of men who are capable of destroying the world can only rely on his wives. After all, Yi Hua's subordinates' culture is not enough, and these women's knowledge is still not enough. Sun Fong, do you have an answer? Wei Chang asked hurriedly. Just now, Sun Fong had answered one question, and Little Honorable was extremely satisfied. Sun Fong wrinkled her brows as her brain spun frantically. How can I be different from everyone else? The three celebrities were also thinking anxiously. After waiting for 1 minute, there was still no answer. This caused Wei Chang to become anxious. At the scene, Chu Bai revealed out a confident smile as he waved his folding fan and said, Ali, after thinking for so long, do you have an answer? Donghuang Li pressed onto her lips and snorted. You don't look down on Ali, wait a moment. Uncle Wei, hurry up, Ali is going to lose. If I lose, I will lose Daddy's face, Daddy will fly into a rage. Wei Chang's head was about to explode. If his honor were to find out about this matter, even Little Honorable would not be able to protect his honor. If his honor were to really fly into a rage, everyone would definitely be scolded. I got it. Tang Wei's beautiful eyes shone. Wei Chang became happy. Tang Wei smiled faintly. What is there to be happy when we part? I know Pegasus Meteor Fist. Chapter 322. Very quickly, Dong Huangli received Wei Chang's answer. Cheating little king. Little Ali, it's been 2 minutes. If you still can't answer, it'll be your loss. Chu Bai felt carefree and relaxed. He had finally regained his face. This youth had been immersed in poetry for dozens of years. From children's songs to poetry, he was proficient in everything. Reading makes me grow up, reading makes me happy, no one can stop this young master's love for knowledge. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong were also very worried. I really want to blast that narcissist into smithereens for bullying Maya. Dong Huangli pursed her small mouth, then clenched her small fists and made a boxing pose. I know Pegasus Meteor Fist. Chu Bai was startled, and muttered a few words in his mouth, and his expression immediately sunk. The audience also exclaimed in surprise. Although it wasn't completely correct, it was still another way of saying it. It seemed normal for children who were only a few years old. Which child didn't watch cartoons? Dong Huangli enjoyed this moment very much. Uncle Wei is truly the best. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong let out a sigh of relief. Qin Ya and Qin Yutong both heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Bai furrowed his brows. He couldn't recite poems anymore. He had to increase the difficulty. If I say you can do it, then you can do it. Chu Bai said in a deep voice, using his ultimate move. Everyone had a look of disdain on their faces. To actually play a couplet, shameless to a whole new realm. Meanwhile, Dong Huangli had a confused look on her face. This doesn't seem to be a poem. This bad uncle is bullying a child, shameless. Qin Ya also said casually, shameless. Qin Yutong directly said to Chu Bai, too shameless. Chu Bai waved his folding fan and said, in poetry, there is no distinction between big and small, only between the depth of one's learning. Being shameless to a certain level was indeed invincible. At this moment, Wei Chang received the question and told everyone about it. After everyone heard it, they were all silent. This was very difficult. Lai Gu silently turned around, seemingly telling everyone, don't ask me about this. I'm good at explaining all kinds of positions on the bed. Absolute Heaven pulled down his nightcap. He couldn't even answer a poem, let alone this couplet. His brain had been defeated. The Green and Red brothers felt ashamed that they couldn't help Ali at all. Wei Chang could only place his hopes on the ladies. After all, the men were responsible for destroying the world, while the women were responsible for washing and cooking. Zishan could be seen sitting quietly at the side. She didn't seem to be very sociable, and she didn't say anything either. Just that, Yi Hua felt that this group of people was very strange. They are obviously so strong, yet they are actually living quietly, especially that person called Lai Gu and Zhu Tian. Wearing a nightgown, how could he possibly look like an expert? And that Zhu Tian is still wearing a nightcap, and there seems to be an eye patch in his pocket. My God, this was simply a group of devils with Chunibu syndrome. Yi Hong quietly approached Zishan and asked softly, Zishan, do you have an answer? After Zishan heard that, she let out a sigh of relief. Zishan was a deity who had lived for 1,000 years, and she had also learned some zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. He nodded slowly. Yi Hong was delighted. If you say no, then I won't. Even if I can, I won't. Everyone looked toward Zishan in unison. As expected of a deity, she did it neatly and neatly. Yi Hong was very happy to be able to help Ali. She smiled at Zishan and said, thank you. No need. Zishan said calmly. If it wasn't for Yi Hong's request, I wouldn't have helped them. Lai Gu and Zhu Tian looked toward Zishan. It has been so many days, and Zishan still hasn't put down the airs of a deity. It seems like his honor is going to be disappointed. In actuality, Zhu Tian understood his honor's intention. To Zishan, his honor was thinking of testing her, to see if she could change the way of thinking of a deity. As for how his honor would be able to change the way of thinking of a deity, that would depend on little brother Red. Wei Chang hurriedly passed the answer to Dong Huangli. After hearing that, Dong Huangli smiled and placed both of her hands behind her back. looking like she was very knowledgeable. This gave Chu-bai a bad premonition. Could it be that she can even come up with such a couplet? Is she still a child? If you say no, then no. If you say yes, then no. Looking at Dong Huang Li's petite figure, everyone couldn't help but admire her. A trace of cold sweat flowed out from Chu-bai's forehead, and his expression was very grave. Why is this little thing so outstanding? When I was this young master's age, I was still drinking milk. After keeping his folding fan, Chu-bai said gravely, Ali, you are not bad. Uncle is praising me. Dong Huang Li even cupped her hands like an adult. However, Ali's answer is too slow. How about this, the last question? Ali can only think for 5 seconds. All of the family heads that were present gasped. This son of an aristocratic family is too despicable. Chinya shouted out coldly, what do you mean by this? Miss, don't be angry, Ali is still a child, I won't be serious. Chu-bai's words once again proved how shameless he was. Everyone wanted to look down on Chu-bai, but in the end, Chu-bai was still the son of an aristocratic family. Alright, this is the last question, Ali will agree to it. Dong Huang Li was even more unwilling to back down. Chu-bai smiled cheerfully, alright, no matter what the result is, Uncle still admires Ali a lot. Ali also admires Uncle, to be so serious with a child. Dong Huang Li pouted her small mouth. I don't believe your nonsense. Chu-bai smiled and didn't say anything. Waving his folding fan, he slowly said the last question. If you want to live a good life, you have to be cuckolded. This was also what Chu-bai said. Every time after he cuckolded someone, he would say this sentence. That feeling was just too great, especially the expression of the person who was cuckolded, it would be even more colorful. When Chu-he heard what Chu-bai said, he shook his head. Don't look at how sloppy this eldest son of mine is. His strength is not below mine, but he doesn't like to fight and kill. Instead, he likes to play with other people's wives and play with those half-empty poems. If not for Dong Huang Li stopping them, Chinya and Qin Yutong would have immediately taught Chu-bai a lesson. Meanwhile, Dong Huang Li hurriedly passed the question to Wei Chang. After hearing that, Wei Chang was startled. Out of the 5 seconds, 2 seconds had already passed. Hurry up, there are still 3 seconds left, hurry up. Wei Chang became anxious, and the hostility that was coming out from his body couldn't help but spread out, causing the windows to creak. After hearing that, Big Brother Green's eyes shone, then hurriedly raised his hand. I know. Speak. If you want to live a good life, you have to be a good life. Big Brother Green hurriedly said. Everyone looked towards Big Brother Green in disbelief, while Big Brother Green scratched his head embarrassedly. I just said it because I felt like it. Back then, when Big Brother Green was cuckolded by someone, these 2 sentences were still fresh in his memory. It just so happens that these 2 sentences can be put to good use today. Little Brother Red patted onto his big brother's shoulder, giving comfort to his big brother. Wei Chang hurriedly passed the answer over. Dong Huang Li instantly said the answer, which was exactly 5 seconds, and she even mocked Chu-bai once. After hearing that, all of the family heads exclaimed in admiration. What a genius! Chapter 323. Xiao Yi led another wave of rhythm, followed by a warm round of applause. Dong Huang Li politely expressed her thanks to the lords. Chinya and Qin Yutong let out a sigh of relief. This matter has come to an end, we can't allow Ali to continue messing around. Chinya hugged onto Ali. These fallacious reasoning must definitely have been taught by Yihua. This time, when I return back to the city, I have to properly talk to Yihua and tell him not to teach children like this. Mommy Qing, don't tell Daddy about this. If not, Daddy will definitely scold Ali. Dong Huang Li also knew about this matter, thus she begged Chinya not to tell her father about this matter. Chinya pinched onto Dong Huang Li's cheeks petulantly. You still know about it? In the future, you can't be so mischievous anymore. Qin Yutong, who was at the side, hurriedly kept her phone, and had an expression as if nothing had happened. In actuality, the video had already been sent out. Ali, don't blame Aunt Qin, Ali is the one who said it too late. Chu Bai had a dazed look on his face. He hadn't expected that he, who had the title of immortal poet, would actually lose to a little fellow. Furthermore, it was under the watchful eyes of so many people. He had completely lost his face. After a long time, Chu Bai slowly said, "Ah Li, uncle lost." Dong Huang Li suddenly felt that this uncle of hers was pretty good. After all, Dong Huang Li dares to face failure. Dong Huang Li said in a childish voice, "Uncle, don't be discouraged. In the future, you have to learn more and strive to be able to win against Ali as soon as possible." All the clan heads blushed with shame. This little Ali was really sensible. He actually didn't mention the bet. It was too high. As for Chu Bai, he didn't expect that Ali would actually comfort him. He wanted to cry, but no tears came out. However, as a son of an aristocratic family, his words were like spilled water. Since uncle has lost, then uncle will be Ali's little brother from now on. Chu Bai adjusted his heartbeat. Losing wasn't scary. What was scary was not daring to face it. It would affect his cultivation in the future. Chu Bai's words caused all the patriarchs to be startled. Originally, he was a son of an aristocratic family with a shameless image, but it seemed like he had suddenly changed. In this kind of situation, he still wanted to fulfill his promise. As expected of the son of an aristocratic family, he had a sense of responsibility. Yi Xiao, who was standing outside, said lightly, "Old Chu, your eldest son has a good temperament. He will be able to take on great responsibilities in the future." "You must be joking. Look at him. He doesn't look like he's going to take on a big responsibility. How embarrassing." Yi Xiao smiled and said, "It would be great if my son had this kind of personality. He only knows how to lead a befuddled life all day long. The next generation of the Yi family can't be guaranteed." Chu He felt the same way and said in a deep voice, "That's right. This generation is getting worse. We will be eliminated sooner or later. Old Chu, there's actually another big shot coming tonight, and the 6th aristocratic family in the north will be born tonight." Hearing that, Chu He's expression became grave. "Brother Yi, are you saying that Voidless Realms people are coming over tonight?" "Yeah, why else would Xiao Yi and Bai Zixin come? I was the one who informed them, but they still don't know," Yi Xiao said calmly. "A few days ago, Voidless Realms people came to look for Yi Xiao, and asked Yi Xiao to find an opportunity to gather everyone together. And it just so happens that the once-a-year Yuan Linglong auction was going to be held, and thus, Yi Xiao chose to hold the auction today. Just that, to the other aristocratic families, the addition of one more aristocratic family wasn't a happy thing. After all, the amount of resources that Voidless Realm was giving out was limited, and with the addition of one more aristocratic family, they would have to give out one more portion of resources. Back then, Dongfang family was also messed up because of this matter. Back then, because Voidless Realm was giving out longevity fruits, Dongfang family was very strong, and they had the power to suppress 5 aristocratic families by themselves. It was still the same saying, people are afraid of being famous, pigs are afraid of being fat. In actuality, back then, a strange thing happened. Out of the 2 ancient godly items that were found, one of them went missing, and the one that went missing was precisely the one that Dongfang family possessed. Voidless Realms sent people to investigate, but they didn't find anything. As time passed by, the matter slowly faded away. "Brother Yi, looking at the time, it seems like it will be time to give out longevity fruits again next year." Chu He's tone carried a hint of coldness, seemingly wanting history to repeat itself. Yi Xiao silently nodded his head. "That's right, how much we get is completely decided by the families below us, but next year, there will be one more aristocratic family." This longevity fruit was Voidless Realm's specialty, and it only appeared once in 100 years. There were around 1,000 of them, among which, Voidless Realm kept 900 of them for themselves and distributed them to disciples who contributed, and the remaining 100 of them were distributed to aristocratic families. However, it was not to be distributed evenly. Instead, it was to get the support of the families under the aristocratic families. Of course, this was only for publicity purposes. After all, the longevity fruit was strictly kept a secret. If news of it leaked out and they found out who had done it, it would be a matter of extermination. The 5 aristocratic families did not dare to act recklessly. However, the clan was completely unaware of the longevity fruit every 100 years. They thought that it was an evaluation of the aristocratic families. Back then, the Dongfang family was very powerful and had won over 80% of the families. This made the other families envious. Out of 100, you took 80, and the remaining 20 was divided among 5 families, with each family having 4. The 5 family heads couldn't sit still anymore, so they discovered the tragedy. This was also the reason why Yi Shao wanted to help Tang Wushuang back then. Actually, in his heart, he wasn't really going to help Tang Wushuang snatch the ancient godly item. He was just putting on an act to get Tang Wushuang to do him a favor. When the time came, Tang Wushuang would vote for Yi Shao. There was a reason for Voidless Realm to distribute the wealth like this. Voidless Realm was suppressing the number of wealth and letting aristocratic families do more good deeds. The more work, the more benefits. The Dongfang family had done too many good deeds, but in the end, that's right. Another portion has to be given out. He let out a long sigh. No one heard their conversation, all of them were looking at little Ali taking in a lackey. As a parent, Qingya definitely had to stand out and speak up. My Ali is still young, let's forget about the bet just now. Hearing what Qingya's mom said, little Ali didn't protest. After all, children have to listen to their mommy. It is a pity that such a smart and quick-witted lackey is going to be wasted. I still want to expand the strength of the buried love family. Chu Bai's expression was firm. It seems like it's not okay for me to not be a lackey. Young lady, what you said is wrong. Everyone is an independent entity, and Ali is the same as well. For this kind of matter, Ali should definitely be the one to make the decision. Chu Bai wasn't afraid of losing. Besides, wouldn't it be better for him to lose? After all, following Ali every day is the same as being able to see the 2 ladies every day. Qingya and Qing Yutong had never seen such a shameless person before to actually fight to be a child's lackey. It must be said that Chu Bai's decision was fortunate. It can't be said that he was fortunate, but rather he had cultivated his fortune for many years to be able to become Donghuang Li's lackey. Take a look at the Green and Red brothers. Ever since they met Donghuang Li, their lives had undergone an earth-shattering change. Don't look at how Ali is still young right now. If I acknowledge her as my big brother, I will be able to bring honor to my ancestors in the future. However, different from the Green and Red brothers, Chu Bai joined the buried love family with a purpose in mind, and what he liked more was to become a married woman. Of course, in Yi Hua's group, there wasn't a single woman that you can afford to offend. They aren't frivolous women that you can easily swindle with just a few words. Chapter 324. Mommy Qing, Daddy already has so many underlings and Ali only has Uncle Green and Uncle Red, there are too few of them. Donghuang Li said while stammering. Look, Ali is still so young, but she has already been led astray by Papa. She even wants to take in underlings. This caused Qingya to faint from anger. In the future, I will have to supervise Ali together with Donghuang Baiji. I must definitely not let Ali have any bad thoughts. However, Qing Yutong's way of thinking was different. As expected of brother-in-law's child, Ali had already started taking in underlings since he was young, and when he grows up, wouldn't he be able to soar into the sky? However, Ali's words were heard by some people. Little Ali's papa had a lot of underlings. This was a very important clue. He had to remember it. The most important thing was that little Ali actually had 2 little brothers. This was too exaggerated. It was likely that the adults were just teasing her. Green and Red brothers are the love burial family's left and right law enforcers, and Donghuang Li is a big shot. In the future, Donghuang Li will have to carry forward the love burial family. Qingya said tenderly, Ali, children cannot be like this. Wah, Ali wants a little brother. Do you want? Donghuang Li immediately started throwing a tantrum, causing Qingya to feel helpless. If Donghuang Baiji was here, Donghuang Li might not dare to create trouble. After all, Donghuang Li was rather afraid of her mother. However, right now, Dong Huangli was Qinya. Dong Huangli dared to act like this because Qinya wouldn't blame Dong Huangli heavily and would even compromise with Dong Huangli. Don't underestimate Ali. Ali is very smart. No. Qinya didn't know how to coax a child. After all, Dong Huangli had always been very obedient. Whoa, Ali wants daddy. Dong Huangli immediately used her ultimate skill, causing Qinya to be caught unprepared. Qinya had no choice but to seek help from her little sister. Qin Yutong spread out her hands. It is still better for you to make the decision yourself. Miss, don't force the child. You have to let him fly, Chu Bai said with a smile. Qinya coldly looked at Chu Bai, expressing that she really wanted to let him go. Shut up. Facing Dong Huangli, who was crying loudly, Qinya let out a light sigh. Don't cry anymore. Mommy Qing, did you promise Ali? Dong Huangli opened her big watery eyes and asked pitifully. For the first time, Qinya felt that it was very hard to take care of a child. That will have to be approved by your daddy. Qinya could only kick the ball to Yihua. Alright. If Papa knew that he had accepted a little brother, he would definitely be happy. Uncle, quickly come over, my mommy Qing has agreed to it. Dong Huangli waved her hand towards Chu Bai. Chu Bai couldn't wait to walk up to the two beauties. Uncle, lower your head. Right now, Dong Huangli was still being carried within Qinya's embrace, and Dong Huangli said to Chu Bai with a smile. As Dong Huangli's little brother, Chu Bai naturally had to listen to Dong Huangli's words. This way, the beauty would have a good impression of him. You don't know, but your impression is already gone. Dong Huangli could be seen poking at Chu Bai's hair with her small hands, then parted Chu Bai's hair from the middle. Chu Bai, who had his head lowered, knew what Dong Huangli was doing, and he had a helpless look on his face. This little Ali is truly very mischievous. Uncle, you look much more handsome like this. Dong Huangli was very satisfied with her masterpiece. Needless to say, this 50-50 ratio really suited Chu Bai very well. It had a hint of arrogance and defiance to it. Uncle, thank you Ali. While speaking, Chu Bai took a look at Qinya and Qin Yutong. When I look at them, they are truly beautiful, to the point that I don't even dare to have extravagant thoughts about them. Towards Chu Bai's gaze, Qinya and Qin Yutong were already at ease. After all, I can't just gouge out the eyes of others just because I look at them, right? Who asked me to be so handsome? Sigh, this is truly vexing. Seeing his son's current appearance, he felt resentful towards his son for failing to live up to his expectations. Of course, he also understood that his son's goal was to get close to the two beauties. In actuality, everyone's thoughts were more or less the same. This Chu Bai is quite something. His thoughts are quite meticulous. He actually managed to sneak into the enemy's inner circle and openly follow the two beauties. Song Huang was feeling very depressed. I should be the one standing beside them. But now that I am squeezing into the inner circle, it is very embarrassing. Forget it. Later on, let's see where you all are going to sit. The people that I invited all have their own seats, and since I brought you all here, you all don't have any seats at all. If you don't come with me, you all can only be chased away. However, Qinya and Qin Yutong both forgot that there was still Song Huang. Dear guests, the auspicious time has arrived. Let's enter the auction hall. Along with the sound coming from the surroundings, everyone walked into Yuan Linglong's inner circle one after another. The foreplay was very exciting. Little Ali crushed the son of an aristocratic family. I wonder if the later part will be even more exciting. This year's Yuan Linglong's auction is finally going to be interesting. This trip was not made in vain. Within the group, Tang Wushuang was following behind Gui Qingren, and the two of them did not talk much. Just now, Gui Qingren had been sitting at the side and eating melon seeds while reading a novel, and Tang Wushuang was accompanying him. Xiao Yi and Xu Nan, on the other hand, were watching Dong Huangli's performance. Xu Nan also wanted to give birth to an adorable child like Ali. Bai Cixin and her husband Wang Debao were also watching Dong Huangli's performance. Wang Debao was laughing so hard that his stomach was aching, while Bai Cixin was as calm as water. Bai Qi's expression was not very good, seemingly still brooding over the matter that happened earlier. Bai Qi was continuously scolding Dong Fangyu, who was beside him. Dong Fangyu did not resist and kept listening to Bai Qi's scolding, causing Bai Qi to become even angrier. Chu Bai didn't follow his father and followed Dong Huangli instead. After all, the younger brother naturally has to follow his big brother, and he also has to protect the two beauties. Yuan Linglong's appearance was only for the annual auction, and at other times, it was rarely opened. Of course, all of this was decided by Yi Xiao. After all, this was Yi family's territory. After passing through the main hall at the front, everyone arrived at a spacious venue. The center of the venue was very clean, and the floor that was paved with jades was emitting out spiritual energy. Those jades were clearly not ordinary jades, but spirit jades. This Yi family sure is generous. The seats had already been properly arranged. The seats were divided into 3 layers, the top, the middle, and the bottom. The tables that were made from green jade and mahogany were very stylish, and on top of the tables, fruits and desserts were placed for the guests to enjoy. Beside every table, there was a servant girl who was serving the guests. Although the servant girls were not as beautiful, they were still very rare. The one on the rostrum was naturally Yi Zhao's, and beside him, there was a seat that was set up. Presumably, that seat was Chu He's. Every single seat had a name written on it, and even on the invitation card, the seats were already marked. Everyone began looking for their seats. Although the seats were divided into 3 layers, it did not mean that the seats at the top would have a high status. Rather, the seats that were closer to Yi Zhao's side would have a higher status. For example, Xiao Yi, Tang Wushuang, and Bai Zixin, all of them were outstanding family heads, and they were very close to Yi Zhao's side. However, Song Huang, the sage doctor, was very close to Yi Zhao's side, and this caused Song Huang's originally displeased heart to become alive again. Enjoying the envy of everyone, this kind of feeling is truly great. Meanwhile, Qingye, who was hugging onto Dong Huangli, was standing at the entrance and observing the situation. This seems to be different from what I had expected. I still have to take my seat. Chapter 325. Qingye looked towards that Song Huang. As expected, he still has a righteous look on his face. So this is the famous sage doctor of the north? This bearing is nothing more than this. What a hypocritical man. Su Qing, how about sitting over at my place? Xiao Yi walked over and asked. This time, it wasn't Xu Nan who suggested it, it was Xiao Yi who took the initiative to chat with her. "Co Xiao, there's no need." Qingye replied politely. "If I sit over at Xiao family's place, wouldn't others think that I'm from Xiao family?" Qingye didn't want Yi Hua to misunderstand. This was a matter of reputation. Xu Nan shook her head and thought to herself, "Brother Xiao, why are you so stupid? He already has a family, what's the point of sitting with you?" Xiao Yi went into a daze. "I'm sorry." "It's fine." Qingye was very confused about Xiao Yi's attitude today. Perhaps I should find some time to ask him about it. Of course, Tang Wushuang didn't invite Qingye and sat down with his master. Of course, Bai Zixin didn't either. She just nodded her head politely, and in the blink of an eye, 70 to 80% of the seats were already taken. "Qingye, sit over at my place." At this moment, Chen Xuanzong suddenly walked over and said. Although Qingye was very cold towards him, Chen Xuanzong didn't have any intention of giving up, and he also wouldn't back down. Qingye could be heard saying faintly, "Fatty, I already have a family, you don't have to say any more." "Qingye, why are you doing this?" Chen Xuanzong didn't understand. What's so good about that Long Outyin? Although Qingye doesn't know whether Long Outyin's martial arts are deep or not, Qingye knew that Yi Hua's martial arts were very deep. With a swoosh, Chu Bai walked out from the back while waving his folding fan. He had a very elegant expression on his face. "What are you yelling about? I asked you to leave, why aren't you leaving? Are you trying to get a midnight snack?" Chu Bai waved his folding fan and said very impolitely. This kind of job of protecting beauties was something that he was very familiar with. Chen Xuanzong knew that Chu Bai was the son of an aristocratic family, and he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Chen Xuanzong had to endure for now. "Qingye, I'll go over first then." Chen Xuanzong was still very polite, and even seemed very humble. In actuality, the more he acted like this, the more Chinya hated him. At a time like this, showing off one's strength was the most important thing to do. However, it was still useless, because Chinya was no longer the Chinya of the past. She had now awakened. With Chinya's strength, not a single person present would be able to withstand her attacks. After all, back then when Chinya awakened, Wei Chang's initial judgment was that Death Mage wasn't Chinya's opponent. Furthermore, Death Mage was already strong to an abnormal degree. He was even able to insta-kill a big shot. What about aristocratic families? About blowing air. Therefore, the biggest boss at the scene was Chinya. Actually, there was still a hidden boss. Right now, Dong Huangli knew how to play with fire. Dong Huangli knew how to play with fire, and what she was playing with was a true deviant flame. No one in this place would be able to withstand the flames. Back then, even Yi Zizi had fainted from the flames. Of course, there was also a mini-boss, and that was Qin Yutong. When Chinya was a celebrity, she had completed all of the missions given by the system, and her strength had also reached an abnormal degree. Chinya's strength was almost at the same level as Death Mage. If not, how would Chinya dare to mess around with Yi Zizi? However, this was the limit of the system. If the system wanted to level up any further, it would have to depend on luck. After meeting Yi Hua, the system decisively gave me a mission. Of course, there was also that livestream mission. However, Qin Yutong had already forgotten about it. With such a big backing like brother-in-law, it would be fine for me to just be a spoiled sister-in-law. Why the hell would I even do any more missions? As for Chu Bai, who was beside her, strength-666, I really can't bring it out in public. Qin Yutong secretly took a glance at her big sister and discovered that big sister is trying to do something tonight. Is she preparing to explode? If she explodes, that would truly feel great. Just that, with big sister's mentality, she would at most scold a few words and definitely won't kill anyone. It's much better to act cool with brother-in-law. Whoever he wants to get their lunchbox will get their lunchbox, and I won't even give them their salary. Big sister, what should we do? Qin Yutong was already rubbing her palms together. These seats were arranged very neatly, and it was impossible for them to fit into the seats. If we don't add seats, are we going to make big sister stand? Or are we going to chase her out? If brother-in-law were to find out about this, all of you would have to die. Chinya had never encountered such a thing before, but her bloodline was telling her that her bloodline was not to be looked down upon by anyone. Ali is not happy now. They are actually not giving me seats. I am going to tell Daddy about this. Dong Huangli pouted her small mouth and said, if you still don't give me a seat, Ali is going to snitch on you. If Daddy were to find out about this, all of you will be finished. Chinya already knew of Yi Hua's strength. To be able to fight against that shadowy figure for so long, he is even stronger than me. These people are definitely not his opponent. They made me and my child feel wronged, and with Yi Hua's personality, he would definitely kill all of them. Just that, there are good people among these people. Today, I was just tricked by that Song Huang, which is why I ended up in such an awkward situation. Chinya comforted Dong Huangli. Ali, be good, Mommy Qin will find a seat for you. No, Ali doesn't want Mommy Qin to feel wronged. Dong Huangli was very stubborn. She stretched out her little finger, and a beautiful purple flame appeared. Chinya and Qin Yutong's beautiful faces were immediately illuminated by the purple flame. If this little flame were to be thrown out, then basically everyone present would be dead. Ali, how did you make this happen? Chu Bai cried out in surprise. He didn't sense the aura of the firmament ghost fire. Because his strength was too weak, he only thought that it was just a flame. Meanwhile, Chinya and Qin Yutong were able to sense that the purple flame contained a terrifying might. It was not an exaggeration to say that everything within a circumference of a mile would be turned into scorched earth. Uncle, do you want to play with it? I will let you play with it. Dong Huangli didn't know the might of the firmament ghost fire at all, and she thought that she could let others play with it. And Chu Bai really stretched out his hand to touch this man who didn't care about his life. Chinya shouted out gravely, "Don't touch it." Chu Bai almost touched it, but he was stopped by Qinya. Ali, quickly retract the flame. Qinya wrinkled her brows. Why does Ali know such a terrifying technique? Without even thinking, I already know who taught Ali. I don't even know what to say to Yihua anymore. How can such a dangerous technique be taught to a child? If the child were to act recklessly, wouldn't we be finished? Seeing that Qinya was a bit angry, Dong Huangli retracted the firmament ghost fire. Mommy Qing, don't be angry, acting coquettishly was Ali's way of doing things. Ali, is this what Daddy taught you? Qinya asked. Dong Huangli nodded her head. What else did Daddy teach you? Hearing what Qinya said, Dong Huangli wanted to show off again. 10 different types of flames could be seen appearing on Dong Huangli's fingertips. Qinya and Qin Yutong's mouth twitched. Brother-in-law sure dares to teach. Qinya was helpless. This time, when I go back, I definitely have to hold a family meeting. In the future, the child's education and learning of techniques will all be taken care of by me and Baiji. Ali sure is formidable, this magic trick is awesome. Chapter 326. This was a follower who could wave a fan and shout 666. Alright, Ali, quickly put it away. You can't casually play with fire in the future. It's very dangerous. Qinya was very attentive in teaching Dong Huangli, and Dong Huangli was also very willing to listen to Qinya. Dong Huangli felt that Qinya was a lot gentler and easier to talk to than her mom. Mama always had a straight face. Recently, this situation had improved a lot. Dong Huangli retracted the flames on her 10 fingers. Ali understands. While they were talking, everyone had taken their seats. Only the 3 of them were still standing. The situation was a little awkward. Chu Bai, who was behind him, didn't say anything. This beautiful lady definitely wouldn't accept his help, so there was no need to get involved. Qin Yutong only thought that since someone came to act cool, then I am already prepared to slap that person's face. It has been a long time since I caused trouble, and my hands are a bit itchy. If that was the case, then Qin Yutong would be disappointed. 2 attendants could be seen carrying a table and walking over and placing the table beside Qinya. One of the attendants said, Miss, this is prepared by my master for you. Qinya looked towards Yishao, who was on the rostrum, and the latter nodded his head with a smile. However, Qinya returned the greeting very politely. I feel that this Yi family's family head is very gentlemanly, or perhaps, he is giving face to the son of an aristocratic family, but who knows? The other family heads were still very surprised. Ever since Yuan Linglong opened for business, something like this had never happened before. At first, it was Xiao Yi, then it was Bai Zixin, and now it was Yi Xiao. Just who was this woman to be able to receive such treatment? Everyone was curious. Song Huang was extremely displeased. Initially, as long as they were willing to lower their heads to Song Huang, he would let bygones be bygones. But he never thought that such a thing would happen. All the plans today had been disrupted. To Qinya, since she was already here, she might as well watch the auction first before leaving. Qinya brought along her little sister and sat cross-legged at the table, while Chu Bai sat at the back and waved his fan in boredom. This auction is so boring, there isn't even a chance to be a hero and save a beauty. As the family head, Yishao stood up and began to speak. His voice wasn't loud, but it was clearly heard by everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone here. This Yi is deeply honored. Today's auction items will be provided by my Yi family, and all the income will be donated to the impoverished mountainous areas. At the end of his speech, the audience applauded enthusiastically. By the side, Chu He's expression changed slightly. This Yi Xiao was very generous, using such a method to win over people's hearts. From the looks of it, he was building a good foundation for next year's longevity fruit. It seemed that he had to act as well, and the other 3 families were probably preparing to act as well. Big sister, should we take some back? Qin Yutong asked curiously. Qinya said faintly, do you have money? Qin Yutong paused, then rolled her eyes. Right now, my food and lodging are all brother-in-law and big sisters. I have no choice but to lower my head when living under the eaves. However, regarding charity, Qinya felt that she still had to do it. I might as well learn from Yi Hua and donate all of my income to charity. In the future, I will just have to rely on Yi Hua to support me. If Yi Hua knew what Qinya was thinking about, he would definitely jump up. Leisure Bar's business was already not good to begin with, and if I were to still donate money, my entire family would have to go hungry. However, Qinya felt that her way of thinking was pretty good. Men, after all, have to give me some pressure. If not, how can I just stay at home all day and not go out to work? I have to discuss this matter with Baiji. In the future, I and Baiji will stay at home and take care of the child, while Yi Hua will be responsible for raising the child. Qinya's way of thinking was pretty good. If the Supreme Overlord were to go out and carry bricks, Yi Hua would most likely be angered to death. Dong Huangli, who was eating on a big apple, said with a smile, "Aunt Qing, don't be sad, Daddy is even poorer than you." Qin Yutong laughed. Speaking of which, although brother-in-law is very powerful and disdains to go out and earn money, he still has to live his life. Every time I see brother-in-law asking big sister for money, it is simply too amusing. However, big sister is also a demon that dotes on her husband and will always listen to brother-in-law's request in every way possible. I heard that recently brother-in-law's living expenses have increased to 100 RMB per day. Furthermore, it was through WeChat transfer. Yutong, when do you plan to start working? Qinya asked. Big sister, can we not learn from others? Everyone is working, but I, Qin Yutong, am not working. Hee, just wait to starve to death in the future. Qinya laughed dryly. Qin Yutong held onto her big sister's arm and said sweetly, "Don't I still have big sister? How can I bear to let my little sister starve to death on the streets?" Dong Huangli hugged onto Qinya and said, "What Aunt Qing said is right, Ali will have to rely on Mama Qing in the future." Qin Yutong and Dong Huangli high-fived each other. Qinya was helpless. Seems like only when I don't have money will I be able to improve myself. You want money? I have a lot of money, how much do you want? Chu Bai, who was at the back, saw the opportunity. Qin Yutong looked at Chu Bai in disdain. Who wants your money? Even if I, Qin Yutong, starve to death, I won't want your money. That's right, even if Ali goes to beg for food, you can't use your little brother's money. Wow, what an ambitious person, Chu Bai expressed his admiration towards Ali. Just as the three of them were talking, the first auction item had already been carried onto the auction stage by the staff. The person in charge of the auction was an old man, and the old man seemed to be very experienced. The staff could be seen taking off the cloth covering the auction stage, and a commotion could be heard. On the stage, a small bottle could be seen. The workmanship of the bottle was fine, and the bottle was golden in color. Although the opening of the bottle was blocked, a pleasant fragrance still floated in the air, shocking everyone. The old man said unhurriedly, "This item is bejeweled jade immortal dew, a product of Voidless Realm." Yi Family Head was fortunate enough to receive Voidless Realm's reward, and today, Yi Family Head even brought it out to be auctioned. The bright jade immortal dew has the effect of strengthening the body, and it is also known to cure all kinds of diseases. Cultivators who drink it can even stabilize their strength, but this is not the greatest use of the bright jade immortal dew. It can adjust the body functions of women, making them more beautiful, slow down aging, and maintain their youth forever. The scene was silent for a moment. What followed was the exclamations of the women. In terms of appearance, it was a woman's life. And this small bottle of bejeweled jade immortal dew was the antidote to their rebirth. Who doesn't wish to become more beautiful and alluring, obtain the favor of men, and want to become like Qinya even more? Even Bai Zixin was tempted, not to mention the others. In actuality, Tang Wushuang was also moved. Qin Yutong muttered, "Is it really that mystical?" Qinya said tenderly, "The effect of those meats is 1,000 times better than this." "I think so as well." Qin Yutong muttered. Qinya knew that the bright jade immortal dew was nothing more than spring water that fell from the sky in Voidless Realm. However, compared to those meats that Yi Hua brought with him, the bright jade immortal dew was far too inferior. However, to them, this bright jade immortal dew might be a treasure. Chu Bai, who was at the back, was unconvinced. This bright jade immortal dew is a treasure, and yet, it is actually being described as mineral water by them. Ladies Qing, although I don't know what meats you two are talking about, this bright jade immortal dew is indeed amazing. Chu Bai felt that there was a need to give the two of them some knowledge. So spicy, so spicy, so spicy. Dong Huangli ate a piece of marinated duck. Who knew that the marinated duck was super spicy? Qingya suddenly recalled that she saved a few bottles of bright jade immortal dew. Although the quality of the bright jade immortal dew cannot be compared to those meats, it is still qualified to be used as mineral water. Stretching out her slender hand, Qingya took out a bottle of Nongfu spring water. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.